All right, we're going to call to order the Tuesday, February 2nd meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. Rebecca, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Casissa.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Present but muted.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart.
Here.
Mayor Beckman.
Here, thank you. Please join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now it's open time for public comment. This is an opportunity for any members of the public to comment on any items that are not on our agenda tonight. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes apiece, and we will start with Roy Wolford. If you'd like to make public comment during open time, please just raise your hand via Zoom or email publiccomment@tcmmail.org. So we will start with Roy.
Before I start, before the time clock starts, Rebecca is going to put up on the screen well, she'll put her screen up and she'll show what I'm going to present. It's going to take longer than 3 minutes. My wife, Arlene, say hello.
I'm right here. Hello.
It's going to take longer than 3 minutes. So I would like to ask if her time could be yielded to me. If not, she will take up the last part of the presentation.
Sure.
So I continue, or she picks up the presentation?
Go ahead. If Arlene's on the line.
Okay, so thanks to Rebecca for showing this screen. She's going to do a little navigation when I talk through this. So this is a screen from NOAA. It's showing the relative trends or changes in sea level. You can see that there's up arrows, there are down arrows, there's different colors, different lengths, and those are showing the different rates of change. And so we're going to take a look at the West Coast. We're going to look at the Aleutian Islands, and this is all relative changes. So here we see the Adak Islands. Sea level actually there is dropping 2.56 millimeters per year. And again, these are relative because the land has vertical motion, and then this is what's taken into account. So Rebecca, if you navigate over to Skagway, Skagway is dropping at, if you can believe this, almost 18 millimeters per year. Quite a drop. So Rebecca, kind of navigate down. You don't have to stop along the different borders between Canada or Washington or the different states as we go down to San Francisco Bay. But if we look at Neah Bay in Washington, and you see blue arrows, those are pointing down. And so the sea level is going down there 1.72 millimeters. In Hammond, Oregon, it's going down 1.22 millimeters. In Crescent City, 0.75. So now if we can go down to San Francisco Bay, if you could expand that out or zoom in and click on San Francisco Bay. So right at the entrance of San Francisco Bay, we can see that the sea level projected rise is 1.9 millimeters per year. And that I said projected, that's not correct. They're actually land-based instruments that are taking these measurements over decades of time. And so now let's look at Alameda. Alameda is going up 0.9 millimeters per year. And if you take a look, if you can read on the screen down at it says the change is 0.3 or 1/3 of a foot in 100 years. That's in San Francisco Bay. So it's important to take a look at this information. And the reason I'm bringing it up is the CAP needs to baseline and benchmark where we are today and what the sea level rise is actually doing today, or the trends. And this is a great tool for the town to use to get some benchmarks, but we also need equipment. So I'm going to have my wife give a summary on Arlene. Oh, she says no me. Okay, so we quickly went through the changes that are going on. And Rebecca, if you could bring up that chart. Okay, so this is a summarization of the information I provided looking at the local NOAA data. So any of the data you see there in millimeters per year is local to that particular location. San Francisco Bay, 1.99 millimeters. Alameda, sea level is rising per year 0.9 millimeters. And I'll point out that there are 25.4 millimeters in an inch. If you
That's
project
the
those
end of the
out,
first 3 minutes, so we're starting the second, Arlene's 3 minutes now.
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. Okay, so Skagway is dropping in its trend in sea level is dropping almost 6 feet a century if you project out the numbers. On the global average, NOAA satellites and NASA satellites are indicated globally around the world. It's an average trend of 0.3 millimeters per year and 3.3 millimeters per year, plus or minus about 4 millimeters. And I might mention that the accuracy of this data is targeted out at 95% certainty. So if you project out the global satellite data, it shows that sea level rise will be 1 foot in a century. Now let's look, I've heard the state, and I think the CAP has indicated that state of California for the past 5 years has carried numbers of 1 to 2 inches. If you take a look at the number of millimeters, you're talking about 2,500 millimeters for a 1 year per inch rise. And look at it's 99 millimeters for San Francisco Bay over that century. For 5 years, you're looking at 5,000 millimeters per century. Project that on a foot basis, over 8 feet in a century, and almost 17 feet over a century if it's 2 inches per year. So that concludes the presentation. I thank you for the additional time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much, Roy and Arlene. Next up, we're going to hear from JR.
Hello, everybody. AR Garibaldi here. I don't know if my video is working or my audio is working, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. I guess I'm here to read I sent a letter out last night. This is in regards to the climate adaptation plan that I know we'll be discussing in much more detail tomorrow, but I just wanted to summarize some points from my letter that I sent to each of you. I am a resident here in Mariner Cove. Very much enjoy the community here. Very much would like to see its continued vitality and continued growth. And I am concerned about various provisions of the CAP that could well stunt that. And again, I know we'll be talking about that in more detail, but as you will see in my letter, which I know is a little bit lengthy, I am very concerned about the levee and tidal gate proposals that are currently found in the draft CAP and the potential near and long-term impacts on our marshland, on our waterways, on our views, on our property rights, et cetera, et cetera. I understand, I guess, the function that they will serve, but I do not believe that they are where the town should be spending its time or money, certainly in the immediate future. I feel like there have to be better, more environmentally sensitive, property-friendly, neighborhood-friendly measures that we could take to help combat the rising sea levels, some of which are already referenced in that CAP as it pertains to nature-based adaptation, some of which may need some more exploration by our consultants and constituents and everything else. But it feels like it is a very heavy hammer to swing at this time. And I'm lobbying my objection to those measures being included in any sort of draft CAP. I also am concerned about the real estate disclosures that are suggested should be implemented on homes in Mariner Cove. I believe them to be a very, very bad idea. And I would say the same thing for restrictions on redevelopment and renovations in a neighborhood where, frankly, you know, a lot of the homes around here need them. They're starting to get them as new families come in. We need to be encouraging that. And any sort of restrictions that are going to dry up the buyer pool or demotivate folks from improving our neighborhood, I think, need to be very closely analyzed and, frankly, deleted from the CAP. I also would just submit finally that I think there needs to be a lot more community input before there's any sort of legislative action taken on this in the coming months.
Great. Thank you, JR. Thank you very much. And we do not have any other hands up at this time. Rebecca, do we have any emails for public open time?
I will check quickly, but I also wanted to add that Mr. Garibaldi's letter and all other emailed public comments we've received since the agenda was published on Friday have been uploaded to the website and are available on their respective links as late correspondence received on the agenda. So they are available for the public to view, and they were emailed to the council for review.
Perfect, thank you.
No additional emails for open time were received.
Okay, great. And we do not have any other hands up for open time, so we're going to close open time for public comment. There are no presentations, so this brings us to the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and do not require further discussion. Any member of the council or the public may pull an item from the consent calendar for further discussion if they wish to. Would any members of the council like to pull any items from the consent calendar? If not, we'll turn it over to the public. If any members of the public would like to pull any items from our consent calendar for further discussion, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom. We'll give folks a minute here. And I am not seeing any hands, so we will, a hand just went up from Annette, so we will bring Annette on here. And Annette, you can go ahead and unmute yourself whenever you like and let us know which item you'd like to pull.
I'm unfamiliar with, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm unfamiliar with the terminology. When can we comment on this new town hall?
Oh, absolutely. That is coming up later in our agenda. That's going to be item 6A.
Never mind.
Thank you. We'll come back to you then. Okay, great. So we will bring this back to the council for discussion and a possible motion on the consent calendar. Yeah, Bob.
Move to approve items 4A through 4D.
Thank you. And Fred?
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir. Rebecca, could we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Casiso,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart,
Yes.
Mayor Beckman.
Yes, thank you. That takes care of the consent calendar and brings us to item 5, our public hearings. The first 5A is a public hearing to consider authorization for the Public Works Director to execute a facility financing contract with Tanco Street Lighting Incorporated in the amount of $260,519 for the design and construction of townwide LED retrofits of existing streetlight fixtures. RJ, I believe that's you.
Good evening, Mayor Beckman, members of the council. If I may, I'm going to start by sharing the screen. So this project dates back to at least the last action was in 2019 to set a budget aside to retrofit our streetlight network to LED. This was originally planned over a kind of phase approach, a two-phase approach, if you will. And you know, through our analysis, we think there's an opportunity to accelerate that based on some of the cost savings and numbers we're receiving here today. I wanted to talk about first some of the merits of the project. And if you can see my screen, trying to zoom in, it's not quite going any further. You'll see that there's, you know, considerable energy savings and also costs estimated at about $75,000 annually. And to retrofit our entire network, we're looking at a baseline cost of $260,000, and we're putting aside some contingency just for things that may come up. I have Tanco lighting here that will discuss any technical issues. We have received some community feedback as of recently, and I think there was some little bit of misinformation about the type of lighting that we were proposing. In some of the past experimentations with other agencies, they used different Kelvin lighting that had that, you know, more bright white appearance. You know, we're proposing a 3000 Kelvin light. We've had pilot projects within town, 2 outside of town hall, and also a series of them in front of Nugget Market on Paradise Drive for you know, at least 2 or 3 years, and I haven't received any significant negative feedback on those. So you know, we have no reason to believe that they aren't performing as intended. Separately, part of the reason this is a public hearing is this is considered a facility financing contract, which is slightly different format than your typical design and then competitively bid process. In some ways, for me, it feels like a design build. So you did a request for proposals. We reviewed a proposal from PG&E. We've reviewed one from Tanko Lighting. We ultimately internally felt that Tanko Lighting was the best choice, and that's who we're recommending today. They have extensive experience in this field, over 150 projects. They're really experts in their area. And with that, I'm happy to introduce Carolyn with Tanko Lighting, and she's, were we able to bring her on? Perhaps I'm not seeing her on the list, but
looks like she is an attendee right now and has her hand up.
We'll bring her over for at least question and answer. But
perfect.
Really, they're going to try to make all the network look as close to now without sending bright white light into people's homes, and really focus the lighting in the right of way. And she'll be able to speak to that in much
RJ, who am I bringing over?
Sorry, it's Carolyn.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But on the facility contract side, this does require a public hearing, and hence why we've notified it as such. And this has been a formal notification that has been out for 14 days. So we've complied with that requirement, and we'll be discussing it today and taking any comments. Carolyn, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, hi, this is Caroline McDonald. I don't think anything to add right now. RJ, you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there. Yeah, if anyone has any comments about the project and what we're planning to do with the town, feel free to ask.
Great, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, RJ. We're gonna take questions from the council, and then we will turn it over to the public for public comment. So are there any questions from council members for our staff or our consultants? David?
One, I think this is a question for RJ. If there is an existing light which neighbors feel is too bright in their homes, and we replicate that, is there a way that the focusing, and I've read the material, is the focusing can really direct that light entirely on the street and sidewalk? Or if there is deemed to be an inadequate shielding, what's the process that somebody has to add a shield?
Yeah, I could answer that, but I know Carolyn's going to answer it much better, so I am going to pass that one to her.
Yeah, no problem. That's a really good question. So when we are conducting our audit, which is our first phase, we have someone walking around the streets of the town. They're going to be noting about 20 to 30 different points of data per fixture, and they will note if a particular light is not angled properly, if it is going into someone's home. We build out photometrics to match or what should be in the right of way rather than in people's homes. We don't want any backsplash when we convert to LED, and that is a big piece of our conversion, the audit, and then the subsequent design that comes after that. So if we do find any issues like that, they will be addressed in the design portion.
Thank you.
And just to add that, yeah, so our goal is obviously to get it right absolutely the first time. There might be a handful that we need to revisit, and we're happy to do that throughout the process.
Great, thank you, David. Any other questions from council for staff or the consultant here? I've just got two quick questions. One, RJ, who did the pilot program? Who provided those lights?
I don't know for sure. I can't say.
Okay, I was just curious. And then the other question is, do you happen to know what the color temperature of the lights specifically on Paradise is? I've noticed those. I think they look great. I was just curious how the new ones will compare.
Yeah, I believe they're 3000 Kelvin as well.
Perfect.
So
Beautiful. Great. Thank you. If there are no other questions from council members, we're going to go ahead and open this up to members of the public now. So if you'd like to comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom or email publiccomment@tcmmail.org. And members of the public are going to be given 3 minutes apiece to make their comments. We're going to start with Peter Schwartz and then go to Robinson.
Great. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
This is kind of a strong area for me, having been involved in lighting research for many years and kind of up to speed on all this. So a couple of questions. Are you considering dimming of the street lights? So later in the evening when virtually there's no one out on the streets, to actually dimming the street lights way down or even turning them off, for a number of reasons, not the least of which are energy savings, but more importantly, because of impact on flora and fauna. And as David pointed out, the light trespass that occurs frequently when the street lights are located on a street above a house. And for example, in our house, street light shines directly in our bedroom. So I'm just wondering what consideration for dimming of street lights or even having sensors on them for noticing movement and then coming up to light when a car or person comes by.
Great, thank you very much, Peter. We are going to go to Robinson next. And again, we're just going to go through all the public comments right now, and then we'll come back to staff when we come to the discussion portion of this item, in case there's any points raised by members of the public that staff or our consultant wants to touch on. So we're going to go to Robinson next, and then Michael.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Our home, we're in a sort of unique situation, Corte Madera. We live on a hill and we already have a sodium vapor light in front of our house. I think it's already been touched on about the impact on intrusion in light in homes, but our existing light is already intrusive enough to require blinds and blackout curtains if anyone sleeps in the front bedroom. We're on the hill, as I mentioned, and from the back of our house, we already have existing lights illuminating our windows from San Quentin, the town center clock tower, and virtually every street light east from Birch out to the bay. Our home actually can see the bridge, can see Richmond, Albany, and Berkeley, and we get the lights from most of the south side of Corte Madera. So it's an unusual circumstance. My concern, and I think RJ sort of touched on this, and also the consultant, regarding the intensity LED lights to be installed, how they'll compare with similar lights that were installed in San Rafael that generated over 100 complaints from the residents. But it's my understanding that San Rafael is working with PG&E investigating and possibly installing a shield or screen or even possibly a dimmer, as was mentioned previously in some areas. In the city of Davis, the worst example I found, they received so many complaints, they plan to spend some $350,000 to replace the LED lights after they got so many neighborhood complaints. I don't know what kind of lighting they had and how that compares to what's being proposed in Corte Madera. I do understand, I read the staff report, the merits of the proposal as outlined, and would like to know how our proposed 3,000 CCT lights will compare, as I mentioned, with those other communities that received significant complaints. And also, I think Vice Mayor David Kuhnert touched on this. The question I have is about those that have existing lights and those that are going to have these new LED lights now. What will be the process to mitigate the intrusion of light onto adjoining homes, either through dimmer switches was mentioned or by a shield? I think that was a remedy that was actually mentioned in the staff reports. I'd like to know how that is going to work as well. So those are my comments. Appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to go to Michael next, followed by Janet.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, I've got two just quick questions. One, has any consideration been given to supporting the lighting system with, say, solar, a solar backup, a battery storage, either on the fixtures themselves or a central system that could offer power for the lighting? And then my second question is, has any consideration been given to potentially financing the cost for this LED conversion through the savings? In other words, put together maybe a 10-year loan and be able to pay the costs through the savings we realize from this efficient lighting.
Great questions. Thank you, Michael. We're going to go to Janet next, followed by Pat.
Hello, hi. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is the first time I've been on a Zoom town meeting. I really love it, and I love that little clicking clock. That's really awesome. Keeps me on target. I just had a couple of questions about, well, actually one real question about what I think is, and I haven't done enough reading, but I think is a procurement that occurred that ended up being Tanco being sort of awarded for this job. And I'm just curious what the evaluation factors were that were used in this procurement or the solicitation. And the only other comment I had was I do have a street light that hits right into my home, into my windows. And so I was going to just suggest that maybe the city put up a little sample before and after lighting example somewhere for the public to drive by, maybe in the evening, and see, maybe at town center building or something. As they drive by, they can see, okay, this is what it looked like before, this is what it'll look like after. And it might alleviate some of the concerns about this bright white light, which of course would be a big bummer for me because I already have the bright light coming in, and having it any brighter would be awful. So just a suggestion to kind of give folks a kind of an idea of how it will actually look. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Janet. We're going to go to Pat next.
Hi there. I want to say I really support this project. We just went through some crazy work doing some electrical lighting, landscaping at our house, and then we learned all about the great value of LEDs for energy savings. It makes the fixtures last longer, everything works better. So thank you for this initiative. I agree that we need to be really careful about shielding from the light. In our landscape, we were careful to put, we were just lighting the walkway so that you're not blinded by light at eye level. And I know you can't do that with street lights, but putting something on top of them that would shield uphill people who are inadvertently just washed in light from street lights. And when we first moved into our house, we have a light right out in front of our house that was so bright. PG&E actually came out with a can of black paint and climbed up on a ladder and painted out the part of the light that was facing into our house. So I figure if I can get PG&E to do that, I'll be able to get RJ to come over and figure out how to shield the light. And also the other thing is, I think a lot of the complaints I read about some of those too. They're from it being the wrong shade of white, too white. So I think if you can go towards the warm colors, I think people will have a much better reception to them. My comments. Thanks very much. Thanks for your work on this.
Thank you so much, Pat. We're going to go to Glenda next, followed by Michelle.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Sorry, had a little glitch there. I have LED lights in my backyard, and I have been distressed by them because they light up the yard as if it's day. And I hope that a consideration that you make when you're installing these lights, which I know makes sense from the standpoint of energy efficiency, is the hue of the light. I hope that they're as warm as possible, that they are as subdued as possible, because the concept of the dark night sky is a very valuable one. And, you know, I actually think it's a danger to walk underneath a bright light and then step into relative darkness. You don't have any night vision. And I find these lights to be very annoying and unpleasant. And I'm just hoping that there's a way that you can shield them and direct them and warm them up and dim them down and keep the night a sensual experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenda. We're going to go to Michelle next.
Hi, I live across from the fire station on Tamalpais Drive. And I would feel fortunate that I was, my block was part of the ambient street lighting that was installed some years ago. However, on my block, there was one light that was set across the street in front of the fire station, and it's actually had the opposite effect on my home. It's very difficult to find my driveway at night due to lack of street lighting. And while I would never want to go back to the old style street light, which is still at the intersection of just a few blocks down from my house, and it does shine in my living room, I can totally relate to the person who was commenting on that, because I used to have the same problem. But I would appreciate if you could address this in the new lighting plan. Take a look at this one light that's right in front of the fire station, and I don't know why it wasn't on the same side of the street as the rest of the lighting. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Michelle. We do not have any other hands up right now. Rebecca, did we get any emailed public comments on this item from folks who have not gotten a chance to speak yet at this meeting?
Yes, we did receive, a few were sent to town staff. So I'm.
Great, and while you do that, we just got a hand up from Patty, so I'll bring Patty Stolier on here. Hello, Patty.
Hi, I just wanted to say that if anyone is really irritated with their street light, we would really, really welcome it on Casa Buena. Thank you.
Thank you, noted. All right, and we've just got another hand up from Eileen, I believe.
It's actually Dan Phipps, but that's
okay.
But I have just one quick question. I think everybody's concerns are really wonderful. The shielding business, will there be a tool for citizens of Corte Madera to report to some person about a light that is in front of their house, or a known one, so that it isn't left up to the consultants to sort of search out all the potential problems? It would be great to have that tool. Thank you very much for going down this route. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Dan. Oh boy, we got a lot of hands coming up now. We're gonna go to Phyllis next, and then Susie.
Excuse me. Thank you, Eli. I appreciate this. And I too am in the segment that is saying, I already have a light shining in our bedroom from a street light across the street from us. Used to be able to be blocked pretty much by a tree in our front yard, but since we've had to do a lot of cutting back, that's no longer the case. So is the light going to be in the yellow spectrum like the existing street lights, or you said it's not going to be a harsh white light, but it's still going to be in the white light spectrum? RJ's going no.
Yeah, Phyllis, we'll come back to all of the questions and comments raised in public comment as soon as we wrap up.
I'm concerned about a shield also.
Okay, got it. So shielding and like color temperature.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll come to Susie next.
Hi, thank you. I'm very, I didn't know about the possibility of dimming these lights, and I just wanted to say that that sounds very interesting to me. I am concerned with over lighting our town, and the night sky is just something that we cannot lose, and extra bright, too much light, and again, that white light. I would concur with many of the things that were said already. So thank you very much. I know you're going to do your best.
Great, thank you, Susie. All right, and Rebecca, where do we stand on those emails?
Okay, I have the two of them right here, and they are brief, so I won't start the timer. The first one is from Tim Hannell, who says, "To whom it may concern, I am totally against the replacement of our streetlights with high intensity LED lights. The city has not explained what the lumen rating of these new lights will be. Several of the residents of Corte Madera have streetlights in their front yards, so instead of living on a block with a warm glow that has been efficient for 40 years, we will now be living under the lights of a Costco. Thank you, Tim Hanna." And the next one is from Gail Litt, who says, "Dear Town Council members, I strongly object to the proposed replacement of current streetlights with LED retrofits. Wherever these lights have been installed, there have been widespread complaints about their negative effects on human health, light pollution, privacy, wildlife, etc., not to mention their terrible aesthetics. While I support your effort to save money, promote safety, and become more energy efficient, I hope you will balance that with the equally, if not more important, quality of life considerations and our community's wish to retain its small town gracious ambience. Bright 4,000K LED lights may be appropriate for shopping malls and highways, but they do not belong on our neighborhood streets. Sincerely, Gail Litt, Corte Madera resident." Jared, RJ, did I catch everything that you sent to me? Did I miss any?
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Rebecca. We do not have any other hands up at this time, so I'm going to close public comment and bring this item back to the council for discussion. I think a lot of great points raised by residents and a lot of the same points raised by residents. So I think RJ and Carolyn, I think we've got some clear lines of inquiry here. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about color temperature, shielding, how LEDs are with regards to kind of like perceived overall brightness or light spillage with regards, as compared to the high pressured sodium orange lights that we have now, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll jump in first and I'll let Carolyn elaborate. I'm sure she's got plenty of depth of knowledge here. Can everyone see my screen with the diagram here? So this is what they call the correlated color temperature chart. So as you can see, 3000 is kind of in this kind of gold orange category here. Speaking specifically to the article I read about the Davis project, for one, that was back in 2014, according to the article I read. They looked at a pilot project that looked at 5,700 Kelvin, so way up here, and also 4,000 Kelvin down here. They ended up going with 4,000, and that still was considered too bright, and later shifted to a 2,700 Kelvin at a cost of $300,000. So we're here in this category from the start, and Carolyn can talk about the response there as once I hand it over to her. But this is the chart that they use to kind of explain how to compare the various types of lighting to LED. Also want to touch on, so we'll have to look into dimming, and I'll also ask Carolyn for her thoughts on that one. If that was considered, we would have to also look at it from a safety and kind of liability standpoint, because that could change behavior, how people drive and whatnot. Solar, we are, I think on new installations, that's definitely something that we want to consider. Up till now, it hasn't been included in this effort. We can have that conversation with consultants, see what that might cost or entail. But I think the current system should be up and running. So I don't know how often they would go out to have that kind of battery backup need or replacement need. We did consider financing, and that did add several layers of paperwork and whatnot to the process. And given we had the funds, we decided to recommend it as kind of paid up front, just to streamline the overall effort. As mentioned, there was a request to understand where some of these lights are. There's some in front of Nugget, also on the southeast corner of Willow. And so if you're at that corner, there are some nearby. You can see there might be a subtle difference, but very, very minimal. The RFP criteria was really looking at a turnkey project, a detailed process. We looked at the overall costs. Actually, Tenco came in less expensive than PG&E's proposal. And they were very responsive and had a lot of experience. So, and extensive references, all very, very high marks. We would love any feedback about existing lighting that is causing anyone heartburn or issues. Knowing's half the battle. So happy to take those up front, incorporate them into the design and audit. One easy way to send those to us is email them to pwcounter@tcmmail.org. And we'll be happy to highlight those in our process and let us know what it is specifically that you aren't happy with. And with that, I'm gonna pass it to Carolyn to fill in any other blanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to mention that our CEO is also on the line. He is the one raising his hand. That would be Jason. And he has a few fill in the blanks as well. And yeah, RJ, not sure if that would be, looks like he's coming on. There's Jason. Jason, did you want to go ahead and start? I know we had a lot of questions on the color temperature and shielding for the most part. I do want to just address dimming really quick. That could be something with controls, and RJ, you and I can talk about that later, but that's definitely something that we can consider. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Is right. Okay, great. So I was taking notes as the good public comments were coming through. So I'll try to actually go in order because I was just making notes as people were talking. In reference to dimming, there's really no savings right now with the fixtures and even dimming them down. So you'd be paying the same rate, even if you were to dim the fixtures, it would really just add more cost. There are some considerations of potential safety in the night if the lights are essentially too dark and potential hazards that can arise from that. So dimming can be really controversial. And right now it's the design here is just to keep the lights on all night. And the rate will support that. But obviously we do agree bringing the light levels down to something that's more appropriate. There had been mentioned about a light on a hill. We have at times designed where the light is like this and then the hill's like this. We can actually turn the fixture to match the street. That cuts down on the glare and actually gets the light to the surface the way it goes. That doesn't create any problems. So that's something we'll consider because we have, we did lighting in the Berkeley Hills, and that is a consideration that came up and a lesson learned from that project. Several things we're covering, really the color temperature. We're going to be in a very warm color temperature here. It'll be very much incandescent. And the other aspect around the fixtures currently in Corte Madera, the lights have a drop lens, a lot of them, the Cobra heads. So that's really spreading out light in all directions and certainly throwing light up into the night sky. These lights will be full cutoff. All the light will just be going straight down. So the bleed off of the right-of-way is going to be drastically minimized. Usually the complaint that we get is, hey, you're not lighting up my front yard anymore, or I can't see my front door to put the key in. So this is about lighting the right-of-way, which is the public's responsibility, and not getting it into people's front porches, windows, things like that. And these will be things that we're looking for as we're doing our design, is where the pattern is being thrown around and making sure it's staying down in the public right-of-way. I think in general that covered a lot of what people had in reference to the comments. So some of the unsuccessful comments or projects that were mentioned, there was very little design or really just insufficient design. Certainly in Davis, PG&E really doesn't do hardly any design we've seen. They just usually put up the lights and kind of cross their fingers. So we will be going neighborhood by neighborhood and really making sure what's appropriate based on what you have. So that's probably all I have to add for now.
Thanks, Jason.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much. Do we have any comments from council members or additional questions for RJ or consultants? Let's go to Charles.
Thanks, Mayor. So one is, I think I'd like to change the narrative. It's not that our residents are complaining or going to challenge it. I hear from the company, and what I would hope to see is a collaborative improvement process, right? Like we're not just swapping them out, but by doing it collectively throughout. And the process that I've seen in the write-up in more detail is that they will work with people. My own experience is at SFO, we did this for the whole airfield on high mast lighting, for $2 billion airplanes. I did the photometric studies with, lighting designers. The new LEDs, they're very focusable, and you can tune them to specific areas and hit and get the foot candles on the ground that you want. It's a much different thing than what all these streetlights we have currently in town are. It's just a totally new game. It's $1.7 million that we're going to save overall in energy costs, and then also maintenance. These things go forever. Environmentally, I think that they're a lot better. Light bulb recycling and stuff is a really difficult thing, especially with the sodiums. The orange light is not good. There's state regulations about lighting and night compliant lights. So they just by code can't install anything that's going to flood the sky with, it's only getting better at the state level and everything down below. So I hear a lot of those complaints. The other thing is I also have one of those big orange, street lights out in front. It comes into my window and I put down the shades. And so I personally saw and read all these over the last week, and I thought a lot about it on a personal level. It's the street light isn't just about my house; it's about the neighborhood. It's about the health and safety of everybody that shares the streets and walks down my street. Children going to Safeway at night, and the other thing is we've been struggling with car break-ins and a lot of other things. And, the lights really help keep that type of petty crime down and other things that I think are as beneficial, if not. And we all have shading systems and can deal with it, but I think it'll only improve. I've also done interior lighting. The 3,000 is actually low. 35 is what the standard usually is now for what we understand as light. So it will be a nice warm glow from what I understand. So I just wanted to share those understandings because and then the other one is on the financing standpoint, from what I read, is the initial thoughts were this was going to be a $500,000 project, right? And basically it's come in at less than that, the 3/5 of that, and we get to do the entire town and the money's already there. So it's actually that we're going to put money back into the kitty. So I think that everybody needs, the residents really need to understand that because the technology has evolved and this, as we do more of it, the cheaper it gets. So I can make the findings on this, and I hear everyone's concerns, and I really saw the process they were talking about. I've seen it, and I hope that the residents feel they have the ability to collaboratively improve their lighting conditions as we upgrade. So,
great points. Thank you, Charles. Who else would like to comment on this? David?
Very quickly, Jason, you mentioned a sort of flattening off the bottom. Is that what the write-up meant as focus or focal lens of these lights? If you could just be a little bit more clear as to exactly what change from before to after is, and give people additional confidence. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the lights, the terminology is full cutoff. And that's really the terminology. Yeah, just like what Charles did there. Yeah, it puts everything straight down. In fact, there's even sometimes when people are approaching the streetlights, the glare is drastically cut down. We've even had some people say, oh, the light's not working, but the light is on the street. They just can't see it because it's literally not coming towards their car as they're walking towards it. So it is very much different in terms of how it operate. And it's really more almost like you can maybe draw an alignment to like your headlight. It's very much a focused beam. It's not going up into the sky. It's really getting out and in front. This is somewhat of the same idea that it's creating a box of light within the street, going sidewalk to sidewalk and really not leading out from the right of way. And the term coming back to it is full cutoff. Nothing is going up into the night sky, and also having the right amount of intensity on the street. So you're also not reflecting light off the concrete or off the blacktop back into the night sky as well. So it's really dialing it in. So you're just getting enough, but you're not reflecting it back out either.
David, when we installed them at SFO, they used to have scalloped ones, and it's literally like the bottom of the light is flat. And so it just broadcasts down, and they basically get if they need angled flow, at least with ours, they had these little kind of frenzel kind of concave lenses that they could tune, and then the fixture itself has the ability to adjust by a couple degrees to also then put it where it needs to be specifically within that throw. And then that throw they can map down onto the space. And that's what the photometric studies that they speak about is actual foot candles. They can figure it out from the height of the pole and specifically where it would go and what it needs to do to achieve the public goals. So.
Oh,
Great,
very
thank you,
helpful.
David. Great, thanks. Bob, I saw your hand.
I was just going to thank Charles for real world experience with this. So thank you. I mean, it was great perspective and staff gave a great report. It sounds like this is going to be a net improvement. There's going to be some hiccups as we get this through, but it sounds like it's a real positive on a lot of different levels. So I can get behind this too. Thanks.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can support the project also. The question I have is, RJ, if say it gets installed a month later, resident complains about it, is that your group that would go out there to make appropriate adjustments? Or how long does Jason's group have to make those adjustments?
Yeah, so the bulk of the effort is going to be leading up to the construction of the audit, the design phase. I forget the exact terms, but I know the install is really only 2 weeks, and we're looking at sometime late summer, early fall. So we will send out some next door posts and other outreach materials saying, hey, here it's coming, and provide some information of where to contact should there be a need to make an adjustment.
Okay.
And then we'll work with, ideally work with the experts, Tanko, and get it all resolved before we, close out the project.
Right. The only thing to keep in mind is as we go forward, daylight savings time, and it is what it is. But if you're installing those during a period of time where it's lighter, later, versus all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock at night, we may have some differences there. But again, it is what it is.
Great, thank you, Fred. The only thing I'll say is that honestly, I think members of the public raise great points, and if these are the things that we're worried about, which is light spillage, safety, and aesthetics, I'm even more supportive of this project then, because I think what we've heard from staff is that these LEDs are going to be an improvement over the existing orange lights on all of those fronts. And to anybody who has any questions, I would say only go check out the pilot program lights that are on Paradise Drive right now. Like RJ said, right out in front of Nugget. I drive by them every night. They are they're just the right color. They're warm. They're not overly bright. They don't cast a glare the way that the horrible orange ones do. I think this is fantastic. And I would take a motion if anybody would like to make one.
I'd like to move approval.
Great.
Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Charles.
Councilmember Casissa? Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes, thank you very much, Rebecca. Item 5B, this is the first reading and possible introduction of ordinance number 1004, authorizing the town manager to settle claims and lawsuits of up to $50,000 as permitted by state law.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I want to thank Rebecca Vaughn for drafting the staff report and for the work of our town attorney for putting this ordinance together. Again, in January of 2019, Assembly Bill 2249 took effect, which increased the dollar threshold with respect to projects, and they may be performed without formal bidding procedures in accordance with California Public Contract Code 22032. So as we started to basically make this update to our ordinance, we identified three additional areas that we wanted to update. The last time this ordinance was touched was in 2003, and then over a decade, I believe, before that. And so we wanted to update. It's on page 2 of your staff report. What we're asking for consideration is to allow the town manager to settle claims and litigation, the establishment of thresholds for non-public projects such as purchases of materials, supplies, equipment, and services, and the authority for purchasing agent, which is your town manager or my designee, to amend contracts or purchasing orders, provided the amendments do not exceed approval authority. And so, again, on page 2, you can see what we're asking. We're asking that you allow and authorize the town manager to settle claims on litigation. Government Code Section 935.4 allows the town council to authorize an employee to compromise and settle claims and litigation in the amount up to $50,000. The proposed ordinance allows the town manager to collect, settle, and compromise, release, or dismiss any claim of the town provided its disposition and not otherwise directed by the town council or by statute, ordinance, resolution, insurance policy, or agreement, and subject to certain conditions. As you can tell, I don't write like that. That's definitely Amy. The second one, again, we're upping some of the thresholds per really the standards in the industry, and we're moving in the second spot here. We're upping to $60,000 to be let by purchase order up to 200,000. So that would be the second one for contracts. And then also we're upping, let's see, where am I getting lost here? And then again, we're also asking for the updates in the bid policy to require consideration of at least 3 bids on all purchases and materials and supplies and equipment and general services over $10,000 and less than $75,000. So anything between $10,000 and $75,000. The previous threshold was $5,000. So we're upping it again, $5,000. It's been some time since we've updated this. And really, you know, the cost of supplies and materials has gone up. And again, this is in accordance with either standard law practices or with other cities and towns within the Bay Area. We also have on attachment, let's see, we have attachment 1, we have the introduced proposed ordinance, but we also have a redlined attachment so you can see the changes that are being recommended. And we are happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Todd. Do we have any questions from the council for Todd? If not, we'll go ahead and open this item up for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom or email publiccomment@tcmmail.org. Rebecca, did we get any emailed public comments on this item?
Yes, Mayor Beckman, we got one emailed public comment and the resident actually combined her comments. There's a similar item on the sanitary district's agenda tonight. So I'll just read, it's 2 paragraphs. I'll read the full comment now and just refer back to it when we get to the sanitary district agenda.
Perfect.
Okay, it says, dear public comment, thank you for circulating the agenda and related support. You are all quite busy. There clearly are wonderful initiatives being organized for. I also believe the current team in place at the town is truly serving the public exceptionally well. My comment that I may not be understanding with Public Works relates to not having to obtain a competitive bid or request for proposal RFP if $200,000 or lower. Assuming I read that right somewhere in the package of information, the spirit of this provision makes sense. So the town can work efficiently given its overall budget. Should there be some type of limitation provision, AKA a cap, to that language so that a bid could not be broken into 2 amounts, $200,000 or less, each to work around the provision requirements, perhaps have a limit that any vendor can utilize such provision once per 12-month period. This comment also applies to the town manager being able to enter into agreements $50,000 or less, again, limiting the ability to split the amounts and or the number allowed per 12-month cycle. So if no one individual has the ability to avoid a review process, again, very much support leadership needs the flexibility to work to get things done. It's more the temptations of pressure to do something, processes and controls with limitations. So the individual has a place to turn to double check themselves. Best regards, Mary Kaiser.
Great, thank you very much. And we do not have any hands up, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion and a possible motion on this item. And I would like to invite Todd or Amy to start if they want to just maybe touch on the points raised in that, I thought, very thoughtful comment.
I think it's a great comment. I think I understand what she's asking. I'm going to ask RJ or Amy to touch on that because this is really what you do every day. I will just remind one point that I definitely want to emphasize, and I think the council understands this, but for the community, again, what we're asking too as well on this, within these thresholds, this is currently items that are within the currently approved budget. So this isn't something where we're just going to say we're going to approve something $50,000 that hasn't been approved by the council previously. So these aren't budget amendments. It's already approved within a line item within the budget. And so I just really wanted to emphasize that. And RJ or Amy, can you touch on the question asked?
Right, and what also you can't tell from this ordinance is the state has a public contracts code, and Public Works, the whole process is itemized in there, and it prohibits, bid splitting and some of these things that the commenter was talking about. So we have those safeguards in state law. What we're simply, and then state law allows the town to decide the thresholds that they want, and the thresholds that we're adding are consistent with state law. We're not doing anything that exceeds what the state allows the community to do. And in terms of the settlement of claims and litigation, state law expressly says that a town council can delegate up to $50,000 settlements. And I'm sorry to say, but in today's world, 50,000 and less are considered basically nuisance settlements. And so the idea being, that's the threshold. The state has determined that no, we want our council members to address bigger settlements and bigger claims, but under that amount, the council is busy doing a lot of important things, and they shouldn't need to do that. It is a cap on, so that has to be a separate claim, a separate, the claims you have to, before you can sue a government entity, you have to file a claim. And those claims get evaluated by staff to determine if there's merit or not. And then they'll consult with the town attorney and other attorneys from our firm to decide whether to pay it. So there are safeguards in there. You can't really split that because you have one claim. But the fact that we do have to, review each of these before making the determination to settle is a safeguard to ensure that people aren't playing the system, and that they can't file multiple claims for the same incident. So I believe San Anselmo or Larkspur has recently done the same thing in terms of their claims. So I think I think the commenter is right we have to have our safeguards in place, but I think in this situation we have those safeguards in place, and the idea is council should be setting policy and reviewing the big picture items, but the smaller things, can really be dealt with at a staff level. Happy to answer any other questions. RJ, I think, has something.
Just one item, Adam, to add. Amy addressed it very well. There's also, we're also subject to random audits. We have fair contracting groups out there that also will perform their own audits. So, not only is it explicit, there is an enforcement mechanism. So just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you guys. Charles?
Yeah, so just to start up, I worked under this, basically the same guidelines. There's the design build projects I've worked in a couple different places had those thresholds that you've set previously. And the project managers, it was a much more efficient tool for them to execute the overall contracts. They're not really built to be exploited. They're still under the contract law of the state, and it's very stable. The other thing I have to say about our local government is I know Todd and RJ, if there was some kind of question to it, instead of jeopardizing their own, kind of reputations and the town's reputation, would just bring it to the council anyway. But really it's an expedience tool so that they don't have to ask for giant buckets of money. In some ways it allows them to execute the project more efficiently without hitting us up all the time. And I think it's, because the state's basically made it possible, it's kind of the industry standard. So I think we should just approve it. So I can make the findings for it, no problem, and be assured that, it's not going to be corrupted. So.
Great, thank you, Charles. Any other comments? And if not, we'll take a motion. Yeah, Bob?
I move that we waive the first reading and introduce ordinance number 1004.
Great, thank you. David?
Second.
Beautiful, thank you very much. Rebecca, whenever you're ready.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart,
Yes.
Mayor Beckman.
Yes, thank you. That concludes item 5B, which was our last public hearing, and brings us to item 6, our business items. Tonight's only business item is discussion and possible action to address town hall facility and operations. We're considering two options. One is to renovate the existing town hall here on Tamalpais Drive, and option 2 is to declare an intent to basically relocate town operations and purchase functional office space elsewhere. And with that, I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll try to give a better staff report this time. I had a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old trying to throw me off my game. So to start this off, I wanted on my background to set it up, the stage of this is what our council chambers would look like with the amount of people on this call right now. And so in the spirit of what it used to be like before COVID, I thought I would share that. I want to introduce my team for this item. This has been, this goes back to 2018 to present of how long we've been working on this with our working group in the community and the planning commission. But Jared Barrio, he's our senior engineer. Phil Boyle is our senior planner. Adam Wolf is our planning and building director. RJ Suko, our public works director, and Ron Cappy from Cappy Architects are on this call. So just a little bit of background for any members of the public that hadn't had an opportunity to look at the whole packet. It's 256 pages, but last meeting, we came back to the council at the last meeting. It's attachment 2 of your staff report. And really what's new, what's been going on in the last few months? Well, the Planning Commission has reviewed this project, and it's come to a culmination, and they have approved both resolutions before you. So the town hall remodel and addition project is ready to go before council. At the same time, staff has been really coordinating our operations of when we can possibly reopen town hall, and as well as dealing with the current situation of town hall. Our roof now needs to be replaced. We had a water leak, 2 water leaks in the last month with the rains. It appears that we have mold now in our ceiling and walls, and we have asbestos in our tiles. We have a lot of issues that we've shared over the last couple of years of why we've even been talking about this project. One of the things that's new right now, and we brought it to council at the last meeting, was what are we going to do in the interim? We have to do something. And so we're going to either have to lease space, get some portables or modules and move somewhere in the area, move our operations. We most likely will not open town hall operations in the current town hall building as we previously knew it prior to COVID. And so that was a discussion we had. The other discussion we had is something that we've always promised the community and the council was once this project was completed, we were going to go ahead and look at all options available to us. This is a big dollar project and it's important. And so we brought that forward as well. And one of the things we looked at was leasing. It was an option. It was option 3. And that was, we looked at all available office space from 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. Bless you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And we looked at all available office space, 8,000 to 10,000 square feet in Corte Madera. And then we took the averages of what lease space is going for right now. And with what we need in that square foot range was about $400,000 to $550,000 a year was our cost, plus utilities and other additional expenses. And so that was the first option. It was one that the council wasn't interested in considering for a variety of reasons, but one was we felt like, I think it was a misuse of taxpayer dollars. And so option 2 was what other office space is available? And we had a number of office space buildings available to us. Since then, staff has really narrowed it down to 2, but they were a primary point of discussion at the last meeting as well. It was 101 Lucky, which is on the highway, off of the highway there in north West Corte Madera. And we had a very good, healthy discussion about that. The cost of that building, if we were to purchase it, is somewhere similar to what the town hall addition project would be. And then we spent a lot of time also, a very intriguing kind of opportunity was Hunt Plaza. Hunt Plaza is 22,000 square feet. And we were evaluating potentially leasing out half of that space and then moving our town operations into the other half. And so that was an intriguing, and it still is an intriguing property. And so we had a lot of discussion about that. After community feedback, the council came back and directed staff to come back to you and further vet option 1 and 2. And so that's what we're doing today. And so I want to set the stage for the staff report for you in the conversation. And so I'm going to have Phil Boyle basically cover the planning commission process and all the work that we did to get to the planning commission. It's one that honestly I'm proud of. Over the last 4 years, this council and your staff and the community of lessons learned of the past really focused on process. And the process, which you'll hear from staff coming up here next, brought us to this project where it is today. And so we're proud of that. And, you know, there were some twists and turns, you know, about 12 months into the process, you know, the neighbors came up and said, hey, we didn't know about this. We're concerned. We want to be engaged. And you could see within the process as we go, and it's on the website as well. It's linked to from the staff report. You can see where we stopped and we had to pivot and we had to re-engage and really have some thoughtful communication and make some thoughtful changes. And I really credit the team and I credit Ron Cappy for making those changes. And then that we finally made it to the Planning Commission, and we'll talk about that as well. The second piece, as you always have in any report, we're setting you up to make a decision. And so our recommendation is that you approve the 2 resolutions before you, the resolutions that were approved by the Planning Commission. At the same time, option 2 is still a consideration. And if council, after this discussion of with staff amongst yourselves and with the community, if you still believe that we should vet the option 2 of either one of these 2 properties, we've narrowed it down to those 2, Hunt Plaza and 101 Lucky, then what we can do is we can engage in closed session meetings and have a real estate discussion of negotiations, as that's a tactical, strategic conversation. But I think council all along said, hey, let's have a number of public conversations before we ever think about having closed sessions. And if that's the way we want to go, then we'll have our closed sessions and we'll negotiate. I see this as you being able to do both at the same time. The recommendation of staff, which you'll hear from us, is to approve the 2 resolutions before you. But your alternative analysis isn't part of the discussion of this report. We have a matrix that has been asked. This is the data that we think council asked us to come back to you with. If there's any new additional lines that you want us to add to this matrix to consider tonight, we can certainly have the discussion. But when you evaluate it, it leads staff to recommend option 1 to you. But again, I think we can do both parallel if council wishes, because it's always the devil's in the details. And if one of these properties in your mind can be had for a certain dollar amount, and if that changes your decision making, we can do it. We're set up to have that conversation and move forward. So with that, if you don't have any questions, I want to turn it over to Phil and really focus on option 1, the town hall addition and remodel project, and really the process that got us here with these 2 resolutions before you. And then we're going to turn it over to RJ after that to talk, or I'm sorry, we're going to turn it over to Adam Wolf. Because I really want him to really discuss like the process, to make sure that you are comfortable with the process to this point. And then turn it over to RJ to talk about the matrix on our alternative analysis for you to consider. And then we'll come back with any questions. Okay, Phil?
Thank you, Todd. I just wanted to, I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Everybody to see that? Yeah, then I was going to just introduce my boss, Adam. We moved the order around a little bit, Todd. So I think Adam's going to go first, and then to me, and then I think to RJ, if that's all right with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And thanks, Todd, for setting that up. You stole a lot of my thunder here, but because you know I love the process as well and talking about that. But good evening, Mayor and council members. As Todd mentioned, what we're going to do, Phil and I are really going to talk about sort of the project planning and the process that got us to this point, and then we'll talk about the options, and RJ will take it over from there. So I do just want to reiterate and echo really what Todd said about the last 2.5 years. It's been quite a remarkable process. It's something that I feel really good about in terms of how we got to the point where we are today, where you can look outside my office and I can see the story poles going up, and you can actually really see how this potential project fits in with the neighborhood and incorporates a lot of the comments we heard. And really that's a tribute to the last 2.5 years, the project being shaped by many members of the Corte Madera community who have spent their time and energy and participated and contributed at public meetings and workshops. It's also, Phil, you can go to the next slide. Really, this was, back in early 2019, this project really was shaped by those who served on the town hall working group. They were tasked with identifying and weighing opportunities and constraints for a potential town hall project and an appropriate project location. As Todd mentioned, it was shaped by our neighbors who will be most directly affected by new development, both on Tamalpais and on Willow. By the town's planning commissioners who thoroughly vetted the project design, sustainability measures, and parking over the course of 3 public meetings, starting in the spring of 2020, and then culminating in a meeting in October, end of October this last year. And also through careful analysis and study really by a lot of town staff and our project consultants who Todd introduced, but really led by Public Works Department Director RJ Succo, and jump-started by Peter Brown as his predecessor, Senior Engineer Jared Berrio, and Senior Planner Phil Boyle. You'll be hearing from him right after me. Of course, Ron Cappy, our consulting project architect, Circle Point and Bayren, along with Peter Schwartz, who we pulled in to help provide environmental and energy analysis, respectively, on those 2 different aspects of the project. Other consultants, engineers and traffic engineers as well, for parking analysis. And also it's worth mentioning just, of course, Todd, town manager Todd Cusimano, and the town council as well, who really provided direction at key junctures of the project development process. So what's exciting is that we believe these efforts really have created a project that meets the town's needs for a long-term solution to the long-standing and serious deficiencies at the existing town hall facility, which we've talked about at length during community meetings in the past, and just last town council meeting as well, as we touch on that even earlier in this presentation. So, but it also will provide this long-term solution to meet our town's residents and our business community by providing a more functional and operationally efficient facility that respects its neighborhood context and creates inviting public spaces where our community can congregate and take part really in the important work of shaping Corte Madera's future. So I know I and the rest of the project team were truly excited to be able to show the town council and members of the public this town hall remodel and addition project, and answer questions that you may have. And the first few slides that Phil is showing is just to show the various public meetings that we've had. As Todd mentioned, at the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission did recommend to the council approval of not only the CEQA document, the initial study mitigated negative declaration, which is a requirement for the council to approve and evaluate the environmental impacts prior to approving the town hall additional remodel project. So the second resolution, if you'll recall, what we've done is have a resolution that essentially approves the project as a legislative matter based on information provided in a town project report. This is following this the new process for reviewing town projects on town property, town-owned property. So those are the 2 resolutions we have for you to consider this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Phil, who's going to do a relatively brief recap of the project proposal itself. Oh, and I should mention as well, since and Phil, why don't you pick up on this? But since the last planning commission meeting, the planning commission did have recommendations for us to continue looking at sustainability options and analysis. And then of course we've done the matrix of the town hall project with the other two purchase options that Todd had mentioned, and RJ will cover that. And then yes, the story polls are up, which I think is really an excellent way to, after all the discussion around looking at plans and two-dimensional and some three-dimensional renderings, it really gives you a sense of what this facility we're talking about looks like and feels like.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I would concur. It's been an exciting process. Hard to believe it's been 2.5 years, but it's been a great process. It's amazing how it's changed from our early visions of what town hall may be and what we've got today. I think it's been a real collaborative and enjoyable process. So I'm just going to give, well, first, before we go project interview, I'll give 2 more shout outs to staff. The 3 Musketeers, Tracy, Rebecca, and Lorena, who kept all the public noticing out there and really kept our town website, our town project website up to date. You can go to our website and see all the meetings that took place and look at the old agendas, look at the old minutes, look at the old videos. So if there's anything you want to see, please go to the town project webpage for that information. So I'm just going to give a quick overview, mainly for folks who haven't been involved at all or just slightly involved in terms of what the project is. Total project, the existing area that's going to be remodeled is approximately 3,400 square feet, and that's basically the second level of the existing town hall. We're going to leave the lower level pretty much as is. New construction, we're adding about 7,500 square feet to the east, towards the fire station. That'll be a two-story structure for a total project area of just under 11,000 square feet. Main level is going to consist of a brand new public plaza, which will be an incredible community asset to the town, about 2,000 square feet. We'll have a new council chambers, meeting room that'll be able to sit approximately 95 people. Have a much larger and completely ADA compatible and friendly public permitting center at the street level. So you walk straight from Tamalpais Avenue to that permitting center, or you'll head up from the parking lot via stairs or elevator to that permit center, which will be staffed by building, planning, and public works. So a one-stop shop for everybody, and as well as finance and basically everybody in town hall if you need to see. Lower level, again, adding administrative offices and then a central lobby connecting both levels. Show you a floor plan. This is the Tamalpais Avenue level. Walking from the street, you walk into the public plaza here, take a left and into the main area here, and we'll have the public counter. Again, large public counter serving, and then you have a large number of staff will be right here, easily accessible to take care of the public. If you continue to go through, take a right, there'll be a main lobby here, kind of a waiting area for if people are gathering for a meeting, restrooms, and then the council chambers here. Council chambers, and then back to this will be a small conference room if for private meetings or private conferences related to council or related to anything working with the town. So that's your main level floor plan. The lower level, accessible off of the parking lot. This is our existing town hall. Again, pretty much remains the same. As you heard, it's in pretty bad shape. So we're just gonna leave it there, use it for storage, variety of different things. Adding elevator, lobby area, and new stairs to bring you up to the second level. Coming on here, again, all ADA accessible. This is your main area for staff that aren't interacting with the public directly on a hourly basis. I think there's approximately 7 to 9 offices here, small conference room, other workstations, break room, public restrooms for staff as well. So that's a quick overview of the lower and upper level floor plans. Looking at the architecture, just a brief look at the roof plan. You know, existing town hall stays with a flat roof. We extend a gable roof out to here, and then one parallel to Tamalpais, and then another ridge perpendicular to Tamalpais. And then the plaza here in the middle. There are a couple different images because we played around with the roofs quite a bit. At one point, we had 2 gables here facing the plaza. We've decided, and the Planning Commission agreed, that I think this one simple gable leading into the town council chambers is the best view for that. Another gable issue is at one point we were talking about 2 gables here that I think the Planning Commission recommended to simplify, instead of these 2 gables here, just to have one. And I'll show you an image of that. In fact, that's the image that you see in the first part of the presentation. This one here, we just have 1 gable. Again, just to simplify it. And then, so this is your pedestrian street view. Again, the trees, really the surrounding element, focusing on the trees in the public plaza. Town hall itself gets a facelift as well. ADA accessible ramp, and then stairways up to the plaza from the street level. Here's some heights at the top of the redwoods, top of the flagpoles, highest point of the structure. As you may recall, way back at one point we had a 3-story structure. We've really brought this down quite a bit. And if you had a chance to look at the story poles, looking from this view, you can hardly stand near the story poles. You really just, you see this, and that's about it, because the trees really block a lot of it. The back view, the north elevation, have this line here that shows where our height was at one point back in April of 2020, so just about a year ago. We brought that down in respect and hearing comments from the neighbors to try to minimize the impact. Brought the stairway inside here, and again, this is kind of the back facing the parking lot. Corner view of the northeast perspective, bringing in that light. Have lots of good views. This is that conference room. This is the council chambers. There's talk of needing the council chambers to be dark for presentations, not having light bleed out into the neighborhood at night, but also wanting it to be a nice space during the day. So I think we have a good compromise there. And east and west elevations, again showing the earlier height. West elevation, not structurally not a big change, but again changing that facade, tying in the windows to the new building. And then this is the east elevation here. South perspective, again, a lot of talk about how to integrate the old building with the new. Lots of various discussions, and I think we've come up with a nice solution that blends, keeps some of the old, but blends in well with the new. In terms of sustainability, it's always been an issue. We've always been a focus, not an issue, but a focus on how can we make this the most sustainable building possible. Preserve the redwood trees, photovoltaic panels, EV charging stations, bicycle parking, cool roofs. Everything will comply with California green building standards. As Adam mentioned, we've done 2 in-depth energy analyses, worked with Peter Schwartz on just maximizing the sustainability of this whole project, and going for zero net energy and potentially zero net carbon, which is what that second study revealed. As Adam mentioned, the CEQA document initial study, mitigating negative declaration was done. We had numerous comments, addressed all of those comments in our response to comments, which is required by law, including some of the comments that came in for this meeting. And so those are all on the webpage and available to be reviewed by anyone who would like. And I think that concludes my segment of it. But again, exciting project, and welcome to address any questions that council or the public have. With that, I think I'll turn it over to RJ.
Great, thank you. Next slide. So following the last council meeting, one of the main requests was to further analyze options 1 and 2. And so we've simplified it down to the town hall project and the potential purchase of 101 Nellen and Hunt Plaza. A lot of that focus initially was based on costs. And so as you can see, there's a similar range for the overall costs. I also don't want to lose sight. There is some lease revenue that is in the second to farthest right column that is not factored into that equation. So I want to be upfront and transparent about that. Those are, potential revenue streams moving forward with each of those options. But really, in addition to costs, we wanted to highlight, what we've been hearing for the last 2+ years. Is it meeting the goals of the town and the community? And so we established some additional metrics based on that, those goals we keep hearing. And so one is it's really more a metric of vulnerability or resilience. And when we think about resilience, I'm thinking, seismic, flood events, fire, power shutdowns, those things. And although we have it as a flood zone as kind of one primary metric, the narrative does further go into discuss some of those other things. As Phil mentioned, it was definitely harped on over and over the need for green, sustainable infrastructure, and not just to do what's kind of the up and up for the times right now, but really kind of set an example with the community, and that was important to many of the residents and our council, and we agree as well. Civic pride and amenities, and when I think about that, it's a lot of that is location and kind of bringing the community together, and I'll discuss kind of the pros and cons of that. And then second, the last item was government efficiency and just the ability for us as government staff to serve the public the most efficient way and have them be able to interact with us in the most efficient way. So as I go through each one of them, I'll kind of cover each option across the board. But so town hall, it's not in a FEMA flood zone. And actually the structure would be well above the base flood elevation. So that would give it, good marks on the flood zone side. It's not in a WUI. It would be built, with all those, kind of home hardening elements that you would want to resist wildfires. It's going to be a steel frame building, so it's going to be a lot more robust to a seismic event. So, it's not going to be built to the level of a hospital, but it still is going to be more resilient than the other two structures, and in all likelihood would be there to serve the community post the seismic event, which was one of the goals of this effort. We also talk about green and sustainable infrastructure. It's really going to be at the cutting edge of what's out there. I do want to mention that the lower end of the cost range listed does assume a zero net energy. And we do have some kind of other add-ons, including zero net carbon, that will get it to that upper range. And we'd like to really spend more time on that at a future discussion and reserve that, although we can touch on it today. So civic pride and amenity, it's, as Phil mentioned, incorporating that plaza around the redwoods, having that open public counter space, really making it inviting to have people come in and work with staff to obtain their permits, work through whatever projects they're interested in, also interact with council in the chambers and any other community events that would take place there. Proximity, it's right there to Old Town Square, Town Park, so it's really a central location and a great location for the historical town site. Moving on to 101 Nellen. Oh, actually, I actually want to address one other comment. There also was a comment about, considering a full demo of the existing building. And at this stage, we did look at that a little bit. I am going to have Ron comment on that some. In a nutshell, we felt that would add more than $1 million, $1 to $2 million on the overall scope. We would likely end up with about 1,000 square foot smaller building, although it would be brand new and would be kind of state of the art. And Ron, are you able to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so in looking at the existing town hall location, we're looking at a remodel cost, this would be a new, excuse me, of about 9.5 million to 10.5 million was where it was netting out. We took a look at our cost estimate for our new building, of which we had figures for new construction and remodel construction. If we demo the existing building, there's about a $200,000 demolition cost. We're estimating about $250,000 for demolition, and figuring about a $750 per square foot times 11,000 square feet is how we got our numbers.
Thank you. So moving back over to the other two options. So 101 Nellen, fairly new building. It's built in circa 2000. So it's also built above the base flood elevation, which is a FEMA metric, although it is in the floodplain. Given that year of construction, it does have some of those more contemporary green sustainable infrastructure features, such as solar panels. It is a stucco facade, so it would be more resilient to fires. It's got double pane windows, so it's going to be more energy efficient on that perspective. So it does hit some of those pieces that we would want on through our goals exercise. It is on the northernmost side of town, so not very centrally located. So it's not going to be the most efficient from a government efficiency standpoint or a kind of civic pride standpoint when you compare it to being right there next to Town Park and Old Town Square. We would have to do a lot of tenant improvements to try to get the same level of amenities with the permit counter and council chambers. So, a little uncertainty on that respect. Some of the offices or windows on the second floor do have some views of the bay or Mount Tam, so there might be an opportunity to incorporate some of that kind of those Mount Tam views and kind of bring that into that civic pride element. And we do believe the foundations are very adequate, so that would potentially, we do think it could serve in a post, event, say a fire or earthquake, perhaps in a similar capacity to the town hall. So want to make sure that's understood. And then moving on to 240 Tamla Vista or Hunt Plaza. So this one is in a floodplain. It is below the base flood elevation. If this were a new construction, it would be required to be above that or have flood barriers. So, it'd be a decision we would have to have, whether it's triggered or voluntarily, whether we want to invest in that protection. It was constructed in 1975. So the, on a green and sustainable infrastructure side, it's going to be pretty minimal. It's not going to, it doesn't have solar panels, and a lot of the other things are going to be questionable and kind of based on that era of construction. It does have an interior plaza, so there is some potential for some of those outdoor mingling opportunities that we're talking about on the town hall edition. So do want to highlight that as a positive. It's also next to our courtyard, so there is some government efficiencies there, being in proximity to our public works maintenance staff. And then, yeah, on the construction site, it's also timber construction, so not likely as resilient to seismic events and those sorts of things. So that's really a kind of initial summary of the 3 options, and obviously happy to further discuss and answer any questions you may have. Moving on to just a real, I would call it an introduction on zero net carbon, and I'm certainly not the expert, and I know we have many in the audience, so they can probably speak to this better than I can. But really, we're looking at completely shifting away from any reliance on natural gas. So any of the furnaces, any of the appliances would be all electric in a zero net carbon situation. There was another comment here. And there's also potential that would lead us to investing in a more insulated shell, so to speak. So likely, potentially triple pane windows and really the highest grade insulation to really capture all those items. And that was the slide I was looking for. Yeah, so it would, full electrification, all operational energy used from on-site and or off-site renewable energy. And that would potentially lead us to, the higher grade windows and insulation. And with that, I am gonna turn it over to staff or council.
Great, thanks, RJ. So is that all of the, does that complete the staff presentation?
Yeah, I was just gonna, yeah, I think that does, and obviously Ron's here as well if you wanted to hear more about specifically the architecture piece, but we were gonna leave that for the Q&A, but want to recognize Ron's contributions as well, and he's expertise in the design of this structure.
I guess maybe I'll add one more. As we went through the analysis, I don't know, it really did feel apparent that the goals were, definitely met at a much higher level when we look at the Town Hall Edition project. And knowing there were comparable costs and, setting the example, hitting on kind of all cylinders with civic pride and government efficiency, that was my takeaway from the comparison analysis.
Great. Okay, well, thank you guys all for that very detailed presentation, and thanks for the really thorough staff report. That's incredibly helpful to us. It's clear that you really took our comments to heart and our requests for additional information on this. I mean, I think this side-by-side comparison matrix is incredibly helpful, so thank you guys. We're gonna open this up to the council for questions now, and then when that's finished, we'll go to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Who would like to start us off with questions? David.
I've got a couple of small questions. In the schematic drawings of the building, it appeared to me as though only a small amount of the area of the flat roof only was devoted to solar. Is that a pure schematic? Has any consideration been given by an actual solar person to evaluate the load of this projected facility and how much of that load is met with solar energy? I can see that there's a lot more south-facing area that is available should it be wanted. The other small question is that I didn't notice, I'm surprised I didn't notice before, on the lower floor office schema, you walked through and showed some, particularly, see right in the center in the area of the plaza above, you have some west facing and east facing, I'm sorry, south facing and east and west facing window walls, it appears. What are those looking at if that's in the level that's underneath the plaza above?
Yeah, I'm happy to look at, Ron, do you want to take this? But I will say, they're actually looking out south, basically. And when you stand and you actually look at the story poles, we strung the dimension of the first floor, where the first floor transitions into the second floor. So you actually have quite a bit of a view, depending on how we landscape the street frontage out to the street. And so it's really about trying to get some actual natural light. It's underneath, yes, it's underneath the plaza, but it's actually, the plaza is well above the sidewalk level at those locations. So there is an opportunity to try to achieve some natural light underneath the plaza.
The plaza is a structure. It's not on the ground then. And
yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, okay, I'll just add to that. The retaining walls that you saw at the lower level abut the natural landscape. We didn't want to really interfere with the natural landscape around the redwood tree. So we have about a 4 or 5 foot high retaining wall, and then the opportunity to have windows above that. We were looking at kind of a fern rock garden underneath. We also have the ability to bring some skylights from the plaza to bring additional light down. Those are those rectangles there. Thought we could have a quiet garden view for staff, as well as Adam was saying, the ability even to see all the way out to the sidewalk. And in terms of the solar load question, yeah, there were some studies done where we loaded up the south-facing roofs to handle the load with only.
But this is just a schematic drawing, and you haven't tried to render in the architectural drawings what a real solar facility that serves, let's say, 75 or 80% of the load at the facility are, right?
Well, the first energy study that we did, that Peter Pollard's group did develop some diagrams with more solar panels than we're showing schematically, as you point out, on the roof tonight.
I'm just one who clearly thinks that they make a handsome addition for the public if they're on the south.
Yeah, to that point, so if we're using the numbers, there's potential that solar could be on additional roof panels, not just the ones that are listed as number 2. And that was in one of the prior reports and just didn't make it onto this visual.
Great. Okay. Thank you, David. Who else has questions? Fred.
Yeah, I like the matrix a lot because it really gives us a side-by-side comparison. But Todd, maybe you can address, because one thing I don't see on here is funding, as far as funding, financing, and debt service. Are all three about the same, plus or minus?
Yes, we would use the same funding mechanism, a private placement type of loan. And as you can see, the end result numbers are very similar. So regardless of any of these options, we would use the same funding mechanism as outlined in the fiscal impact.
Okay, and then the $500,000 to $600,000 revenue from Hunt Plaza, that's all dependent on that property being, I want to say 100% occupied, correct? If there was a vacancy, would we have to dig into operating funds to cover expenses and or debt service?
It depends what you're comparing it to. So I guess if you were comparing, the total cost to any of the other options, you would have additional revenue there, right? And so you would just, if you had openings, you would have less revenue. So it depends how we build our annual budget to reflect that. That $500,000 to $600,000 lease revenue number for Hunt Plaza is showing that entire south section of the building, which is about, I think, 11 or 12,000 square feet, being fully leased, and then the town staff being in the north section, the other half of the building. And so you're right. If we had lease vacancies, it would be less. You also have on 101 Allen or Hunt Plaza, you also have taxes, you have maintenance costs. And again, those are probably, I think I'd have to go back to my report, but I think it was in the $300,000 range annually. that you have to take into consideration as well.
Okay, and if I can remember also, I think you mentioned last meeting, that property is in bankruptcy, right? So the process could be prolonged if we did look at it.
So this specific property isn't in bankruptcy, but the owners of this property are in bankruptcy. So there's a number of properties. They are motivated to sell this property. There are no other potential owners right now. And so that is the second part of this question for the council to consider. If you were to consider an offer, we should discuss that in closed session. But I think there are opportunities. We gave a range of 7.5 to 8.5 million because that is, they are asking about 8.5 million. We did a third-party analysis on the building, and the estimates came in at about 7.5. Staff believes there's more room in that low number, and that would be a discussion for closed session. But I think there is an opportunity there.
It does also kind of beg the question, if nobody else is interested in the property, why might that be?
Yeah, to this point, and I know you didn't ask it, but RJ and I, RJ gave a really good education for us today, but he gave me an hour education the other day on site of really looking at these two buildings and then really circling back to like reminding me of when we did the first thing we did when we thought about town hall. We said, what publicly owned properties do we have in town or other potential properties that we could purchase and build town hall? And what are the pros and cons? And it really brought us back to the civic pride part, but really the governmental efficiency. It's something that you can't take for granted. And I guess I have through this process of the importance of being close, not only centralized in town, but to the town park and to the community center, not only for normal events, but heaven forbid we need to do something, the PSPS, shutdowns or any disaster or any time. It's so important to be close together. And that jumped out at me. And the other one was Hunt Plaza. RJ talked about it, not being in the flood zone, but also the current height of that building where it's at in the flood zone. That's a big concern that I hadn't heard until RJ and I were out at the site, and he was really breaking that down for me. And for me, honestly, I felt like possibly for me to recommend as the manager to the council, Hunt Plaza, what if you could have that for 6 million or 6.5? Would that 7 million, is that something that would push Hunt Plaza to the top of the list? What I'm starting to be concerned about is what we're hearing from RJ, the state of the building, where it is in the flood zone, and really the work and infrastructure projects that are going to come before us over the next decade or so on a town-owned facility that we're leasing. It's bringing me back to being really ultra conservative from a town perspective of lessons learned of the past. He's starting to throw some red flags up, but it's good. We're vetting this, right? This has been a multi-month conversation. And so I have some more concerns today than I have in the past, but I want council to hear it as well. And again, if it's something we need to discuss further in a closed session, we're positioned to do so.
Thanks. And I realize also, I think JR mentioned this and you did somewhat also, it sounds like there may be a lot of deferred maintenance on that building also, that down the road, it's going to be a cost to us.
Yeah, the big upfront cost for Hunt Plaza and for 101 Nellen, but really Hunt Plaza is to have that meeting room, the community meeting room, council chambers. There's going to be a lot of work. We're going to have to use the second story, so we're going to have to put in an elevator. So those are the upfront really big costs. And then moving forward, when RJ walks the building, he just starts pointing stuff out to you. That's 5 years, that's 2 years, that's 10 years. How much does that cost, RJ? And you start to do it. And me being a manager, I'm like worried about the budget. I'm starting to get concerned. So Hunt Plaza has some things that we're going to have to really be worried about from a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah, it's going to add up after a while. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Great questions. Who else would like to ask any questions of staff? Yeah, Charles.
So I think this goes back to one of the comments from the architect in the cost analysis of the existing portion being renovated versus a full scrape demo. I guess for staff and him, can we just continue to, if we move forward with approving this, can we still carry both options and vet it out a little more in depth and see if there's other really essential kind of uses and benefits to scraping it, especially because it sounds like every time, this building basically is revealing itself as we go, right? With the roof having to be torn off, with all the electrical having to be replaced, just the efficiencies of using new material and recycling the old. Like, I just don't want to give that up. Especially because if there, if we could do the same kind of analysis of what that $1 million really is buying us, in a kind of cost benefit matrix like this, so we can really make the decision. I would still like to pursue that, because I don't, ultimately, if you go in with a and just bulldoze the whole building versus surgically slicing it into a million different pieces, I can't imagine that it's going to cost 200,000 more to bulldoze it. So and then the other one that I just, there was an additional year to just for demoing that part of the building and building new. And I'd really like to understand the schedule better before I just accept that number. I just, I understand that it might complicate the process, but I'm still not convinced on that. So if you want to speak to that, or, if that's a possibility, and, if I'm not catching all the nuances of those kind of sound bites, a little bit more would help.
Yeah, I could speak a little bit to the process, and I think that is a lot, some of what we considered, and RJ, you can fill in if that's 80% of what we're talking about in terms of additional time. But obviously we've gone down the road with a process focused on an existing, remodeling the existing structure. So if we're now going to consider basically a scraping and rebuild, it's not only sort of what is the design changes and how do we go back through some of the process that we went through to get here at the Planning Commission and other community meetings perhaps, but also the CEQA analysis would also need to be looked at again. And ensure that we're obviously, if you're going into the dirt, and scraping, there's different impacts, potential impacts to consider as part of that. So CEQA is part of that as well. So that's a lot of the time, and obviously, I guess there's the level to get it to the level of analysis and study that we've done for this project. It's just redoing some of those analyses for a different project. But obviously, that's why we're putting it out here. There is still obviously we can do that.
Yeah, and to your point, Charles, I think the demo number was pretty conservative. I think it's not quite that, but to Adam's point, it very much is the whole process and time, and then we're temporary staffing, and then we're going back through all the steps. But we're also able to build, the side-by-side structure with that seismic joint. So there's, and there's really minor seismic retrofitting. There would be some stiffening, but it's a glorified 2-story home, timber home. So it's not going to be crazy seismic retrofits. So it shouldn't be too extensive on that front. But I hear what you're saying, if we were starting new, that I think that would be a much
I just asking the question, and I definitely appreciate that that feedback about those things. So
yeah, great question, Charles. I was wondering the same thing. Bob, do you have any questions, sir? Okay, my only question that I've just out of curiosity, I was just wondering, we were talking about blending the old building and the new. If we go to like one of those 3D views that shows kind of the whole thing, I was just kind of curious what it might cost to throw some sort of like mansard roof on top of the old building, some sort of like 4-sided hip roof with a flat top, so that it just kind of blends in more with it. It has kind of like the same roof line viewed from any angle as the main portion of the building. I don't know if we're able to do like a real quick back in the napkin estimate. I'm just kind of curious, whether that's something that we might consider, and if so, maybe that gets into Charles's question again. Does that impact too much, the work that we've already done?
I believe that came up in the process.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I don't know if you want to jump on it.
No, yeah, Ron, maybe you can speak to it. And I think, Jared, we did sort of an analysis also of do we want to go into the roof and impact the structural, the structure of the roof by doing that. But Ron, yeah, it definitely was something we looked at through the process.
I was just going to say early on, that was an early thought. Over time, I think budgetary concerns started peeling that roof off, and then there were some structural concerns. It's still a viable idea to explore.
Okay, then I'll leave that.
Yeah,
I'll leave that alone for now, and I'll tell myself that maybe that's something that a future council will come back and add on at some point. So
well, yeah, and I think a lot of both of those ideas. I think at various times, budget was something that was driving us to be conscious of
course,
of the costs of the project as we went through different iterations, and so that's ultimately was definitely a driving force. Along with other things that we've mentioned tonight, but it was right up there with everything, sustainability and design and neighborhood context and civic pride and all those things. But at the end of the day, we knew we'd be sitting in front of you as well and asking, the council in the town to expend significant
Eli,
funds here.
one of the comments I read in the CEQA was that the existing building's already inside the setbacks, because it was built before there was even so I think when you start raising the roof up higher and really changing its impact on that street, so close to the street too.
Oh, okay.
That we might not get what we want out of that.
Alrighty, well, I will leave that alone then. Are there any other questions from council members before we turn this over to the public? Alrighty, if not, let's see, would it be possible for us to stop sharing the screen for a little bit? I'm not able to see the list of folks on the line here and see who's got their hands up, I believe.
Peter Schwartz.
Great. Oh, perfect. There we go. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. All right, so we are going to public comment on this item now. If you would like to make any comments on the question of what to do about town hall, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom or email publiccomment@tcmmail.org. We're going to start with Peter Schwartz and then go to Pat Ravazio. And we're seeing a lot of hands come up. I'm wondering if we should do 2 minutes a person instead of 3 minutes. Here, let me ask anybody who's planning on making public comment, if you would be so kind as to go ahead and raise your hand now, just so that we can accurately gauge how many folks plan on commenting, and then we can kind of budget time accordingly. That would be really helpful. All righty, let's see, we've got. All right, I think probably best if we move this to 2 minutes apiece for public comment on this item. But of course, anybody is always welcome to submit fuller comments to us via email or call us anytime. We've already gotten a lot of great written public comment, and we certainly invite more. So with that, we're going to start with Peter Schwartz and then go to Pat Ravazio.
Great, thank you. In my 2 minutes, first thing I want to do is an acknowledgement. I wish to applaud the efforts of staff and the town council on this project relative to community engagement. It's been very rewarding to see such involvement from the town and the town government also. Just a quick comment, a couple quick comments on 240 Tamil Vista as an option. In my mind, looking at the numbers and looking at the building, it doesn't seem like a viable option given the sort of stated policies and goals of the town relative to sustainability. And I think fundamentally there's some critical problems in just accessing that site. It's in one of the worst traffic zones in the county, just trying to get around that area. And I think, access by the public to get there in a convenient way, entry and exit in and out of there is difficult. Not exactly a convenient pedestrian location. And then seismic issues, the building built in 1975, And the minute you touch it relative to current Title 24 is you're going to have to bring up major systems to current code, which would blow out your $35 a square foot estimate on renovation. And so I think the numbers really wouldn't pan out. Additionally, just trying to upgrade the HVAC to approximate something that could handle a COVID era air quality for anyone who occupies the building is problematic. So it's, I think it's throwing good money after bad would be my way to describe that. And in terms of messaging, it really doesn't speak to the town of Corte Madera's commitment to sustainability by going after a site like
Got
that.
it.
And I understand it's cheap, but okay.
Thank you.
On to the positive side of
Oh,
things.
Peter, sir,
Okay,
I'm
Mike.
sorry. That is time.
Okay, give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, please wrap up.
Yeah, so I vote for the zero net carbon since California policy, national policy, global policy is headed towards
Got it.
that. And I think it would be
Great.
short-sighted not to go that way. And thank you. And
Thank you very much, Peter.
appreciate
Sorry to
it.
cut you off.
No
Thank you very
problem.
much for your comments. And of course, if you want to submit any further comments, please feel free to do so. Public comment at tcmmail.org. We're going to go to Pat Ravazio next, and then Peter Hensel.
Okay, I'm going to talk really fast to get it all in. First of all, I love that you're doing this project. I think it's great that Corte Madera is thinking big for the long term. We're going to set an example for sustainability in a beautiful building. And if you were to go to another building, you'd still have to deal with what are we going to do with town hall. So that would be a whole nother mess. But I think the test that I would like to put to the architect is that it should kind of look like it was always there. I think it needs to feel and look like Corte Madera and be timeless. And I think those big white panels, they look really trendy right now. I saw them on the hotel, the Best Western Inn building, and I don't know what they are, but I think in 10 years, they're gonna look totally dated, like that was a COVID era thing. But so that aside, my big question is that if you are, most of you are already aware that the Parks and Recreation Commission is currently working with an architect to create a really smart and economical renovation and expansion of the community center. Those with history in town know that there have been two major community efforts to figure out how best to expand the center so that multiple classrooms or multiple events can be held at one time. And this architect is working to figure all this out and do it in an economical way so that we can have more events and classes concurrently and also have a more beautiful community great room that opens up and captures the views of the park and our majestic mountain, and we can make more money renting it for weddings and things as well. So we're developing these visions. We're kind of running behind you guys on the town hall. So what I would love to seek on behalf of the community is that this project, our project, become sort of wrapped up in this one, in that we are doing an overall facilities planning for Corte Madera, and that you understand that we did, the rec center kind of got set aside when the police station was built, and now we're going to get set aside while the town hall is built. I just want some kind of guarantee that the that the community center comes next. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pat. Much appreciated. We're going to go to Peter Hensel next, and then Lisa.
Alrighty, so you guys can hear me. Yeah. Anyway, I do like the project. My only concern in the beginning was about neighborhood parking because we're kind of maxed out here on Willow, but Todd sort of satisfied my concerns about that, with the long range possibility of moving the fire station. He seems to have a good grasp of the futurism of this all. I just kind of wonder, kind of like Councilmember Lee, I'm sort of thinking it might be better to just scrape the whole thing. Because if we really want this building to last 100 years, I mean, that's kind of a guarantee if we're just building from the ground up. But here, all of a sudden now we got, a roof that leaks, we got mold, we got asbestos. I mean, what else we got, you know? So you might think about that. I don't want to torpedo this project. I like to move it forward, and we don't want to be stepping back either, because it just seems like a waste of time after all, you know, the effort that we put in. But on the other hand, we want to get it right. So, you know, I just think that we should have some more analysis of, you know, well, if we really did scrape and bulldoze a thing, you know, how much more would it cost? You know, and, you know, the positives about that, I mean, I'm not so worried about cost. I really think that it's going to be a source of real community pride. And I was talking with David, you know, the other night, reminding him that his neighbor, you say that Corte Madera has an inferiority complex. Well, this is a chance to really address that, to do something that really is great for the town, that gives us some coherence and pride. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. We're going to go to Lisa next, followed by Michael. There are two Michaels with their hands up, so this is going to be the one with a capital M.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So first, I don't want to discount the process. I feel like, you know, it's been 2.5 years. I moved down the street on Willow. I'm very familiar with the two properties too that you guys are looking at. But I do have to say two things. One is I'm still really concerned about parking. I mean, if you're going to have a 95 seating capacity, I know that you guys did a parking assessment during COVID, but you know, living here, I know how many people in general, when you've got the big heated projects, that people come and they park on Willow and Tamalpais. I know that the planning commissioner Bundy mentioned about just parking across the street over where Bread and Roses is, but we manage that property, and I know that the owners would not be happy about just having random people park at that property. The other thing is I also concur with looking at, and we've basically, my husband and I have been talking about this all along, is I don't see a reason for keeping the existing building. I agree with Council Lee that we need to look at that as an option. I mean, you guys are talking about Hunt Plaza having deferred maintenance and all of this, but yet you want to keep something that has asbestos, a bad roof, mold that you have to remediate. It just seems a little sketch to really consider that. So I would say that it would be good to kind of delve into that a little bit more and take a good hard look at that. I know you guys have been working hard for a long time on that. I also think that if you guys decided to move, those two buildings would probably be very motivated to sell because they've been vacant for a while. So that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to go to Michael next, and then Annette. Are you there, Michael? I see you are unmuted. All right, potential audio issues there. So we're gonna come back to Michael in a little bit. I'm gonna take his talking off here. We're gonna go to Annette and then Barbara.
How's that? How's
Perfect.
that level, guys? Good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, not to be contrary, and I'm sure Todd knows where I'm coming from, I would like us to step back and look at the cost of the whole project. And I frankly don't care where it is. $8.5 to $9.2 million exceeds our whole capital budget for this year, of which we have a lot of projects. And I want to remind everybody, not that you've probably forgotten, that we have a pension fund that's with an unfunded accrued liability of in excess of $20 million. And we're talking about housing, much as I like them all, about 20 to 24 employees. So my option, particularly during this time of COVID, is to just back burner the whole thing until at least we get through this fiscal year. I don't think we take as much advantage of the rec center as we could. Not that we're getting together anymore. But it just seems an extraordinary amount of money for quote unquote civic pride. And that's the end of my comments.
Thank you very much, Annette. We're going to go to Barbara next, and then we will try Michael again, and hopefully he's got his, oh, Barbara has just, oh, there's Barbara again. Okay, let's bring Barbara on here. Oop, she is disappearing and then reappearing, so I'm not sure. Let's try and get her on here. And Barbara, you should be, there you go.
I'm here, sorry.
Perfect.
Had a little trouble. So I just want to go back. I've been a resident of Corte Madera for 27, 28 years. And I just want to I like what you guys are doing. I'm not opposed to the town hall remodel, but I want you to look very carefully at what past town councils have done. There have been some terrible decisions in the past. For instance, we bought that terrible shopping center behind town center at above market value because of Michael Lappert. It was a terrible decision, and it really put the town in a terrible position. And we bought the house next door to town center on Willow, and what's going on with that? So I just want to know, what's the story with those other properties when you're doing all these town hall remodels? Like, are you taking it into consideration? Are you ignoring the past? I mean, you can't ignore the past. You cannot. So I'd like to have an answer.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Barbara. All right. We're going to try Michael again. Hopefully he's able to speak now. Let's see. And so that's Michael with a capital M. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was playing with my dials. That's not dirty. I'm sorry. I'll be quick because I don't know you have only 2 minutes. First, I'm glad the alternate site analysis proved of no benefit, because I think that would be a disaster. Secondly, given the assumptions that Ron Cap was given or created programming, I think he came up with a very good solution. I have some basic problems with that solution that go to the assumptions, and that is that we don't need a town hall that's 3 times the size of the existing. I think it's a mistake to buy into a project design that can't be phased. All this has to be built at once because it's all interconnected, and the building is incredibly complex. And I'm glad to hear people, David Kuhnhart, reflect on the idea of this sunken grotto, which the stair-stepped lower offices look out on. This is a very complex, I don't understand why we're doing it. It makes that new building very expensive. And I think my main objection is, so glad to hear people talking about scraping the corner building. I go beyond that to say, why are we not putting the most identifiable important part of this project on the corner where it's been? And we could build a much cheaper phased building and use the corner for the town council chambers, which I think is a much better solution. It's a start over. I'm sorry, but those are my sincere beliefs.
Got it. Got it. Okay, loud and clear. Thank you, Michael. And Michael has also written us numerous very thoughtful emails, which will all be entered into the public record with regards to this item, as will everybody else's emails that they've sent in. We're going to go next to Michael with a lowercase m, followed by Werner Mawson.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Super. Michael here. I'm a neighbor on Willow Avenue, and my compliments to the team here, to Adam, Phil, and Ron. I think the building looks great. It incorporates the history of Corte Madera with the materials, the wood, but there's also some great classic contemporary features here that we're looking at too. I think it's a very nice design. I think it'll look great for 50 plus years. There's some very nice positive things here too. I think that if the town moved to, say, Hunt Plaza or 100 Nellen, what would happen to the site? What would happen to the neighborhood? Wow. I mean, I got to believe, and I'm in the commercial real estate business, have been for many years, there's a surrounding area, radius of about 2 blocks, that the values of those homes are going to be impacted by a good 10%. A nice new town hall, a flagship there in our neighborhood. Wow, great statement. Whereas if it's vacant and it's just a drive-by, that isn't a location that's right on the freeway. It isn't a kind of a classic commercial property location. It's a special town hall location. I think we need to just do our best to make that site here work for us. Both Hunt Plaza and 100 Nellen, when you do an aerial view and you look at them, there's a lot of dated infrastructure there. The air conditioning systems on the roof, the elevators, etc., the floor plates. It's going to be a very, very expensive episode to try to rework those buildings and get them tenant ready. And oh, by the way, they're in a flood zone. So 20 years from now, with sea level maybe 20 inches higher, and then have a storm surge, wow, right. Won't be good.
Got it.
At any rate, thank you for your time, and my compliments to you for a great looking structure.
Thank you very much, Michael. We're going to go to Werner next, followed by Hoff.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. First of all, it's been a great process to date, and it continues to be, thanks to the staff, to the consult, to the design consultants. As some of you know, I was part of the initial working committee that had 3 meetings on it, and much that I and others on the committee wanted to see in the process has indeed transpired. I think that's great. What I really wanted to talk about at this point, though, is I share both of the topics that David Kuhnhart raised. I think there really is an issue with the entry plaza essentially blocking the light to the lower level. I think perhaps a bigger cutaway of that plaza could provide more light to the lower level. And then more importantly, I think that what we really need to consider is maximizing our ability to collect solar energy, that we really can achieve net energy through the use of more solar panels, as well as then battery backup system. And I think to do that, I think we would consider really flat roofs across the entire building. And it could be 3 different heights of flat roofs, maybe the lowest being over the existing building, a second level height over the connector that goes over to the meeting area, to the console chambers, that would then have the highest roof. I don't think we need to be married to the sentimentality of sloped roofs, etc. I think we have to look to the future and maximize hardcore issues of energy needs and sustainability. But kudos to everyone. I think the process has been great and continues to be great. And with that, thanks for the ability to make some comments.
Great, thank you so much, Werner. And we're going to go to Hoff next.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for taking. I just wanted to mention a couple things. I'm glad a lot of the public is interjecting, and I'm glad that Pat Vazio mentioned that they're going to be doing rec center renovations as well, because that's one of my biggest topics with this building. We've already hit on the fact that It's a lot easier to scrape a building and a lot flat and do new construction. I've been in construction my whole life and done tons of remodels. And whenever you're adding on to an old structure, it's always harder. Plus, as people have said, you don't know what type of problems you're going to have existing as you start to get into it. So I agree with the caller from two previous to me. I think you guys should really look at, scraping it and starting over. And then talk about the use permit issue with the building, because at one point we did hear that there might be different uses for the assembly room. And as Lisa and Peter have talked about, parking is our main issue here. Not that we don't want the town people that we've always had here. We've gotten along with everybody, but we certainly don't want strangers in at night if this facility is going to be used, especially when the rec center is going to be redone. And thirdly, Ron, your gable that points towards our properties is all full of windows. So, why do there have to be so many windows on a north side where there's no light? If that is going to be the case, we were the ones who brought in the cedars and redwoods on Tamalpais. That was our idea. And also the interjection of the madrones. And if this project is going to go forward, I want everybody to know that we are going to insist that there be full-blown trees put on the yellow property. Just let me finish. Everyone else has done it on the property, the yellow house, to block all that is coming our way down Willow.
Sir, I'm sorry. We got to be fair to everybody else. We can't allow one resident significantly more time than the others. But I totally understand. If you've got more to say, please do email.
I'm done.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving your feedback. I appreciate it. We do not have any other hands up right now. Rebecca, did we get any emailed public comments on this item from residents who have not already gotten a chance to speak here?
Aside from the 2 emails we received from residents who did speak, I did just receive an email from Peter Chase. And it's so I'm not going to start the timer. But it says, after years of consideration and effort, the result is well considered and deserves to be brought to fruition. My construction experience tells me to put the effort into getting this project built with no reluctance and partial efforts. Give the town the best new building possible with the great courtyard, and let's get it done. Do not consider the other build out options as remodels in buildings like these are money pits. Thank you, Peter Chase.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And that was our only email comment on this item.
Let me just refresh one more time. Yes, I believe so, unless something was sent to another staff person that I hadn't received yet.
Oh, Todd?
No, I just, Mr. Mayor, when it gets time for staff, if you would like an overview from a couple of the comments specific to,
Yeah, that'd be great. So we're going to go ahead and close public comment now. No other hands up. Thank you to all the residents who joined us and took a look, dove into the packet here and into the proposed design and the alternatives, and for all the great and insightful feedback that we just got. I would definitely ask Todd and staff to go ahead and run through any of the particular comments from residents that they'd like to respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to share my screen and I just want to give a quick budget overview. Again, we talked about it at the last meeting, but it's the key to the conversation because we wouldn't be here today if we weren't in a position that we're currently in, that we've been talking about. And so when Annette Desano, she's a member of the Finance Ad Hoc Subcommittee, speaks, everyone on this call should listen. She's brilliant. She's been a huge part of our success and what staff has been talking about at the council level over the past few years. Really, this discussion over the last 4 years and the work of the Finance Committee to the council, a lot of our policies and practices started with how do we build our reserves? What are we trying to accomplish in our services? And then what do we need financially to provide those services, both short-term and long-term? Let's build up our reserve funds, and we need to solve the unfunded liability problem. And before you can do that, you can't have any conversations about infrastructure. It just doesn't matter. You can't operate as a government if you don't have that strategy. And so part of the discussion at the last meeting, and it's up on your screen right now, is really where's the financial health of those policies and practices over the last 4 years and moving forward? Well, we've built a $30 million funding stream that's cash in the bank. And it's not to brag, this is our hard work, right? This is how we judge ourselves if we're financially stable. And so you have, again, it's a breakdown. You can see it there. I want to point to two things. In the middle, you see the pension trust and the retiree health trust. That's $7.5 million at the end of this fiscal year that's projected. That's important because what we did is through our practices, those are surplus funds at the end of the year. We built that into our annual strategy to fund those. And we've built those up over a period of years. And then now we have the discussion, and I hope it's coming back to the council and the community in the coming months, is the conversation about, bonding those funds and our unfunded liabilities and building a savings arbitrage of about $650,000 that can be used to build these funds further to fully fund CalPERS if they underperform in any given year over the next 15 to 20 years to ensure that we solve the problem over the next 2 decades. Point me to another jurisdiction in the state of California that is in the position we are. We've used every tool in the toolbox. We've even gotten around the California rule that doesn't allow us to change retiree benefits from 3% at 50 to 55. We got around that by consolidating our public safety in both police and fire. So we've done every reform you possibly can per the law, and we've built those strategies. And so I say that because it starts the conversation now of let's look at capital infrastructure. And so the sales tax measure was the first step in that. It built a 15-year plan. And it goes out another 15 years. Every 15 years, just recalculate this sheet. This is our revenue stream for the next 15 years. At the top is the sales tax fund. And so that's the discussion specific here. And it's important to what Barbara brought up. It's important to what Pat Ravasio brought up. And it's important to what Annette was talking about. Look, do we have the money to do this? And is it at the expense of any other projects? And the answer is no, absolutely not. And so when we talk about facilities, the community center, you talk about this town hall project, it's important that we focus and solve these now over the next 5 years, because as you'll hear and as you've heard, when we talk about climate adaptation and all the fire mitigation and the infrastructure needs of this town, we need to really focus on that 10, 15, 20 years out. As you look, now we're talking about the funding mechanism. And so what is the funding mechanism? How do we want to fund this project? And how do we come to that number? Well, we started it with, that's great. There's no reason to wait. COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, it doesn't matter. We have town hall closed. We can't open town hall. We need to move our facility somewhere else now. And so the question is, what are our options? And so if you tell me I have to go buy trailers or I have to go lease space, well, I'm going to come back and share with you that it's about $450,000 to $550,000 a year in cost. I know now from my 5 bosses that you said you're not interested in that because it's a waste of taxpayer money, which your staff agrees. Council has directed staff through the community and the lessons learned of the past to solve all of our infrastructure problems. If we're going to put the time and effort and funding into it, we're going to solve it for the next 50 to 100 years to the best of our abilities. That's what's before you today. And so now the funding mechanism and looking at that sheet that I just showed you, the 15-year projection, let's use the leasing cost as a kind of as a standard. Can we do the same or better? This is what we're going to do. We're going to do a 15-year debt service plan. We're going to put $2 million from the general fund, and we're going to put approximately $2 million from the sales tax measure fund down. And then we're going to fund $4 to $5 million. And we're going to do it over 15 years at the percentage rate that you see. It's in the about 2.75% range. And you can see the annual debt service. It's better than leasing. We can do better than leasing. So that's important to note, because when you go back to this long-term strategy, you can see it's not at the expense. Now, when we talk about the community center, which is a really exciting project, you know, and it's a multi-million-dollar project, we can do something similar. It's not at the expense of any of the 5-year capital improvement projects that we talked about. We're going to get Patty Stolier and her neighbors lights and a sidewalk and improve the streets in the next couple of years. Like all the promises we gave the community with the sales tax measure, we're absolutely going to deliver it. And I thought long and hard, and I lose sleep over this. And I will go on the record as your town manager. I know that my reputation and my legacy is on the line with what I'm saying right now. If I didn't believe it, if I didn't do the analysis and research based on the great finance subcommittees and all the subcommittees that we have around town and our staff and our council and our great community members who have passion and care about this community, reminding us of the lessons learned, I wouldn't be here right now recommending this. I believe in it. I think this is the right step. And from a financial decision-making process, we are positioned to make this decision, and it's not at the expense of anything else. That's absolutely the truth, and it's absolutely a fact. And I'll jump on the table for it. So I just want to really make that clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Todd. That was really helpful. Okay, so we're going to open this up now to questions and comments from the council. We're just opening this up for our council discussion. Who would like to start us off? Charles.
So Todd, thanks for your comments. I wanted to follow on with what you were saying. I think I would just like to remind everyone that when we upgrade the lighting, we're going to save $1.7 million. You know, that's more than the interest payments on the bonding, right? And then another 200. So there's other ways to save money, and then also, you know, I hear a lot of residents understand that the town hall is a functioning entity only for themselves, but the main reason we have so much capital funds to spend is because of the commercial enterprises that also happen in this town. And they have expectations of collaboration and the functioning of the town hall as well. And they're a huge sponsor of it. And, you know, part of it is when I was on the planning commission, a lot of the commercial properties that we allowed to upgrade and benefit, we now are reaping those benefits years later through enhanced sales tax and that type of thing. And so I really want to change the mentality that this is about small town America, that this is about an institutional building that services all needs of the town and infrastructure and sewer and everything else. And, you know, it's a reasonable budget for a facility of this type for any community. So I just really, I hear what you're saying. I understand those concerns. They're valid, you know, but it's hard to, I'm not convinced of that. I think that we've done 2.5 years of really deep dive into what this facility needs to be and the best way to do it. I think I've seen just amazing, you know, in constant learning. It's, you know, we asked you to go back and do that matrix, and that matrix is incredibly helpful to think of those buildings and all their services, right? And it might be going one trajectory, but we learn and come back. And so I really want to applaud everyone on that. And then with the solar, I guess I was a little object. I don't like sculpting buildings to basically put some solar panels on them. I think that there's a lot of strategies of detaching solar panels from buildings and make them more efficient. You know, I think Redwood High is a great example of that. As one example, you know, and not putting them up on the roofs and basically limiting what we can do with a building. A building's a building. Energy production should come from the most efficient ways to produce energy. So yeah, I just wanted to share those thoughts, and I really appreciate all the public comment. Whatever it is, it always helps inform my decision as we move through all the comments. And I'm sorry we had to cut people off. I would have just liked to have heard them a little bit more, but I feel like it's been 2.5 years. So hopefully they've used all those times to influence it to the point we've gotten now. But I can make the findings for both both things being asked of us today and move it forward and you know, feel confident that it's the best thing for the community.
Sorry, I was muted. I just want to clarify, Charles, you are interested in moving the two resolutions and kind of moving on from the consideration of whether to purchase land. Okay, great, thank you. Who'd like to go next? Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the public comment as well. It was really interesting and helpful. But I wanted to kind of come back to before COVID and before this whole thing hit. We needed a new town hall then. We had staff in trailers. I was meeting with Todd Cusimano in an office on the lower floor where he had to bend over to get through the doorway and bend his head down so he didn't hit his head on the ceiling. He was using that as an office. We were trying to use that as public facilities, and COVID has made it much worse, right? We cannot put people into the offices because they're too close together. They can't distance. We got a town to run. We got a staff. We got to take care of them. We need to do this, okay? And this needs to be done. The sooner we get rolling on it, I think the better off we will be. I think the design is terrific. I think it's wonderful, but this isn't a civic pride thing. We need to do this to make sure the town works and functions and continues to operate that it needs to operate in. We need to do this for the staff. We need to do this for the town. And I think the sooner we get rolling on this, the better off we will all be, and we'll all be in a much better place, and the town will be running better. So I just wanted to add that to what Charles had said as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Bob. David?
I agree with what Bob has just said, except that I do think it's also a civic pride thing. But the specific things, first of all, I really want to thank all the staff who worked on the comparative analysis of the different ways to solve the issue of providing a fully professional town hall function. And it's very persuasive to me, and particularly in answer to Councilmember Cassis's questions. There is a potential set of risks and distraction for town leadership if we are going to become a landlord with rental tenants and so forth. So I think refreshing this corner and creating something of pride there, as Peter Hensel suggested. And I also appreciated Michael with a small m on Willow Street stating what if we don't do this, what do we do with the leftover property? It's really not a prime, either residential or commercial location. It is a very prime institutional, that is town hall location. And the alternatives would not be that special. I, of course, do want to get to as close to zero net energy as possible, and urge for the fulling up of solar, and even if it's visible and even if it's on sloped roofs, I think that would be fine. Charles, building over parking as they did at Redwood is more expensive on a per watt basis than it is on a roof. And I do appreciate the comments of Annette and others on dollars, but I also think that because of the situation that we're in, it is the best time to march forward. And I'm impressed with the staff sort of focusing attention and driving this forward. So I could make the findings in favor of both the mitigated negative declaration. Nobody has said anything about the environment being destroyed by this project, and also on the desirability of moving forward with a project. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. Fred?
Yeah, I guess one good thing about going last is a lot of comments have already been vetted. So I won't add to that, but I would go for the city hall remodel. I think buying other buildings, we should just refocus into the remodel. And just to kind of hit, I think my main bullets is, we're building a totally sustainable building. It's going to be built for generations to come, way past, I know, my time. Great location because it's right in the middle of town. Definitely civic pride. I think it's something that we can all take pride in and be proud of once that building's completed. It's got a great design, and it also solves government efficiency by getting town staff in something that functions very well. So I would recommend it, or both, that we move forward with the two resolutions.
Yeah, and I agree. And again, I want to thank all the members of the public who commented. I think a lot of really good points raised and really good questions asked. With regards to those who are speaking about the financial position, I thank Todd for really laying it out very clearly for us. This is a need that we saw coming. As Bob said, we've needed a town hall for years. This building it's 90 years old. It's straight up at the end of its useful service life. That's what happens with buildings, especially if they were built in the 30s and weren't really built to last. So this is very much something that we saw coming and budgeted carefully for. And I thank Todd for laying out, we are confident of our financial position and our ability to afford this right now, really to make this investment for Corte Madera's future. So I think that that seems all buttoned down to me. I also want to thank, I think it was Barbara who brought up Park Madera Center. I think, I think we're all very much cognizant of that precedent, which I would imagine is part of why none of us seem to be interested in buying more land. The town already owns plenty of land. I think we're all in agreement there. And there's, this is a fantastic spot for Town Hall to remain. So I think, that lesson is very much at the forefront of our minds. No, again, it's a project of need, right? As Bob said, this is an office space for folks who provide the services that we all rely on as residents. And when they're working in subpar conditions and have a hard time, even getting in and out of their offices without bending down, when you've got them crawling over each other and when you've got the building springing leaks and has asbestos, that is an impediment to their ability to work efficiently and to provide services effectively. And ultimately that costs taxpayers money, right? Because then you're having staff work more to produce the same amount. It's just, it's a dollars and cents thing in that way. It's an efficiency thing. These are folks who I think we all benefit if we provide our staff with a good working environment. In addition to that, I think one thing that I'd like to focus on more is what a public amenity, this is. I think folks have a tendency to underappreciate the wide array of different groups and organizations and folks who come in and use the council chambers here. The council chambers really is not only the only currently conference room at Town Hall, but it's also a really important public space for civil society. And we have nonprofit groups that will come in and use the space. When we have power outages, we turn it into a charging center. I think that's really critical. And Pat was talking about the importance of tying this project into a larger public facilities master planning thing. I see the community room in the Town Hall remodel as really being an important kind of augmentation to the community center. I think it's another space. It's obviously much smaller than the community space, but I think it's important for us to have, a couple different size venues in town for different size meetings and different size gatherings. And I think that there's a real public value to having a much nicer and more usable community room at Town Hall for residents. So, for all those reasons and the reasons that all of my colleagues stated, I agree. I think this is a well-vetted, well-designed project. I don't see much utility in buying yet more land. So I would also, support moving forward with these two resolutions, and I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion. We go ahead and move forward with the Town Hall remodel and approve the two resolutions.
Great, thank you. Bob?
I'll second that.
Great, thank you very much. And Rebecca?
I would just say if you can, town council members, if we can do each one separately, just from the standpoint of recording a vote on the CEQA document.
Thank you. I was just going to ask about that.
And
Alrighty, so
I will move the approval of the mitigated negative declaration.
All right, that is resolution 3/2021.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Here. Yeah.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes, thank you. And now we will entertain a motion on resolution 4/2021.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve resolution number 4/2021 to approve the Town Hall remodel and addition project as described in the town project plan.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes, thank you. All right, and that concludes our business items. Thank you, Adam and Rebecca, for straightening us out there. So that brings us to item 7, which is council reports and town manager reports, and we will start with Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I actually was going to defer my comments to Adam. We highlighted the recent changes with ABAG and the housing methodology, and I just wanted Adam, if you can, just to give council a quick verbal update on where we're at.
Yeah, sure thing. Council members, as you know, the ABAG and MTC have been going through the process of basically approving the regional housing needs allocation, the amount of housing units that each jurisdiction in the Bay Area is going to be required to plan for from 2023 to 2031. And just so you know, that ABAG gets these numbers from the state. 441,000 units was assigned to the Bay Area from the state, and then the ABAG MTC group through a methodology committee assigns those. So we did submit when there was a request for comments on the draft RENA numbers. As you recall, the council authorized the mayor to draft a letter and send that letter to ABAG, basically taking issue with the methodology that was chosen that assigned additional units to Corte Madera. That process, though, others have chimed in as well, but that process has moved forward to now, I think just a couple of weeks ago, the draft RENA numbers have been approved, and now they are final RENA numbers are going up to, I believe, the ABAG executive committee shortly, and then we'll go up to HCD for approval, the state agency responsible for this. Our numbers are at 725 units that will be required to plan for at various different income levels throughout town, which just for comparison's sake, the last 8-year cycle, 2014 to 2022, was 72 units. So it's a 10-fold increase in the number of units we're going to be required to plan for. And, you know, in general, there's a lot of things to take issue with, but I think, you know, the regional effort here is really geared at addressing housing affordability region-wide, issues of equity as well is what drove some of the numbers to certain jurisdictions rather than others. And of course, some of the planning around reducing ultimately the GHG emissions by assigning more units and more housing growth to areas with already existing transportation infrastructure and jobs. So in any case, that process is ongoing. And so you've likely heard information about that and will continue to do so. That process will play out over the next 6 months or so until there's a final RENA number assigned to us. But our work really starts earlier than that, where we start to think about where, you know, planning for these units in our community should go. And part of that effort is really related to we started working on objective design and development standards, sort of almost assuming that we may not reach and keep up with these units in terms of actually building those units. Obviously, we don't have control about building those. If we don't build those units, then we're subjected to the loss of discretionary review of housing, multifamily housing. So we want to get in place some objective standards so that at least we have that ability to apply those standards to new development that happens in town. But nonetheless, I guess that's where we are. More to come, and for the community members that are out there, we will be sort of reaching out and talking about development of housing in Corte Madera, best locations for that, and meeting the state law requirements moving forward. So with that, hopefully that is enough of a report for now, but I'm happy to come back to the council as well in the near term and have a separate discussion about this if that's desired.
That we have before us, and again, just the only other update, and it's at the top of all of our list. I know we have the climate adaptation workshops both tomorrow night. That's 4:30 to 6:30. We'll be talking about the shoreline concepts, And then on Thursday from 7 to 9, we'll be discussing the power lines and wildfire mitigation with Central Marin Fire Authority. And I know the council has received a lot of comments as staff, and we're working hard. This is what we want. We wanted to have engagement. We have it, and we're going to take advantage of this opportunity. So anyone that's on this call, please join us the next 2 nights. It's important. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go to council member reports now. We'll start with Fred.
Yeah, I attended the monthly MCCMC meeting, which was last week. I also attended the subcommittee for Project Home Key project over by Marin Joe's. And then I also attended the regular steering committee meeting. A couple of things out of that meeting. One thing is we're trying to get away from using the word Project Home Key or the hotel next to Marin Joe's. So we're kind of looking at calling it Casa Buena for now. So we renamed it Casa Buena Steering Committee, just to let everybody know. There should be approximately 9 people moving in before the end of the month. Adam and staff have been working with Marin County as far as on the construction side to get them their certificate of occupancy. And then on the exterior work, more may be coming down the road a little. There may be some grant money that's available to do that. But Homeward Bound was supposed to be walking the property today with a couple members of our community. And I'm not sure if Adam was involved in that or not also. And then on success metrics, there's 3 things that came up with trying to measure the success of that project. One was just looking at calls for service, police, ambulance, those kind of items, which it's easier to be measured. Second was shelter effectiveness, which Catholic Charities is actually going to be running that for the county on an interim basis. They have their own set of measurements that they use. And the third part is community embracement, which that part is still, the subcommittee is still trying to figure out how to deal with that part or what kind of surveys that should be done. And the last part is, as far as volunteerism, there's been a great outpouring from the community as far as in-kind donations regarding blankets and those type of items for welcome baskets. And also to date, about $700 have been donated towards that project. That's all the updates I have. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Fred. Charles.
Yeah, so I attended the first meeting of the year for TAM. There was good news that came out of TAM. I think they had been even more fiscally impacted than a lot of other groups, and because of the impact on public transportation and the type of funding, it was definitely they were at threat of having to do layoffs in some of the groups that they're affiliated with. But because of some of the more recent COVID relief, I think that they are not going to have to do that. And in fact, when the sales tax numbers came back in, it was above their conservative estimates. And so they actually are going to meet their budget, which was fantastic news for them and for keeping our infrastructure running while we try to address the bigger pandemic and everything else, and even move forward-looking projects continually moving. So, the $41 million for the final fix on 101 by Highway 37 and other things have been approved and are moving forward. They have some new resources for public entities looking to understand funding mechanisms and grants for electrification of electric bikes, charging infrastructure, and fleet replacement. And I think that they anticipate that it's going to be even more moving forward, since we're seeing new mandates from the new administration to replace all government fleets, like at the federal level, but then in the state and everywhere else. So I think they're anticipating that that's going to be a huge part of it. They also got some special one-time funding, looking for more shovel-ready projects this next year, and a couple $1 million for improving smaller kind of bike improvements and smaller projects like that. So they're currently looking for proposals from communities for applications for that. So that was also good news, that they're continuing to receive funds and distribute them to benefit everyone. So that was good. And then also I attended the California League of Cities junior member training sessions the last 2 weeks, which I found very helpful and insightful for how council members and mayors are conducting themselves across all of California. And then also I was appointed alternate for the, I think Becca can explain it more, but it's affiliated with that as well. So continue to make improvements for the town and our relationships regionally.
Excellent. Thank you, Charles.
Mayor Beckman, can we
Yes.
take a quick vote to extend the meeting, please? It's 9:30 and we've got the sanitary district meeting after this.
Yes, absolutely. Can we get a motion on that, please?
I'll make the motion. We extend the meeting 15 minutes.
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Bob, any council report?
Yeah, just quickly, the big thing was the Marin Wildfire JPA. We had our first strategy session, which was supposed to be an offsite, but we took the better part of half a day. We did it via Zoom with all 18 board members and the staff. Lots of breakouts and lots of brainstorming about, mission statement, values, strategies, and lots of information about wildfires. So it was really good and really productive, and we should come to agreement at our next meeting on exactly what's going to come out of that. And that's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. David.
Following on with that, the Twin Cities Disaster Preparatory Committee was visited by Michael Brown, the executive director for the JPA, the Wildfire Prevention JPA, and he kind of tilted his cards about a new, very sophisticated, very dynamic evaluation system that police and fire and others are going to use to track any wildfires that may be coming from any direction, called the Zone Havens platform, and there will be a public announcement coming around about May 1st on that front. I also attended the MCCMC meeting, and there's one relevant thing for anybody who wants to or is planning on attending the sea level rise alternatives discussion tomorrow, and that is that BCDC presented to MCCMC and in particular focused on the Bay Adapt program. And I would urge anybody who wants to be prepared for the conversation tomorrow afternoon to look at bayadapt.org. And that's all for now.
Great. Thank you, David. And the only thing that I wanted to report on that hasn't already been covered is I attended a meeting of the MCCMC Legislative Committee. And, kind of tying into what Adam was talking about, housing is really kind of dominating the scene, especially in Sacramento. I think, our arena numbers are insane. Everybody's aware of that. So not too much to report yet. It's early in the session, but I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that I think, again, just like it's been for the last several years, it's going to be primarily housing bills that you're going to be seeing causing a big stir, and that, the Legislative Committee of MCCMC and that the League of Cities are probably going to be wanting to work closely with us on. So that'll be a good opportunity there for us to hopefully, hopefully have some voice in how this all ultimately shakes out. I know Senator McGuire is introducing a bill which I thought looked potentially promising, looking at basically trying to rework the way that these housing units are distributed and that funding for them is distributed. So I'll bring you more details on that once we discuss them in more depth. But just wanted to let you guys know that is on the horizon. That concludes our council reports. Item 8 is the discussion of draft agenda. Any comments on our draft agenda for the next meeting?
Just real quick, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Casissa asked us to bring back the update of where we are in our current work plan. And so under presentations number 2, we're going to swap out the department updates, goals and objectives for town administration. And I'll give a presentation on where we are in that work plan. Also, not on this agenda, but if we can pull it off on this agenda or the next, we'll bring back the amendment to the smoking ordinance as requested by some members of the community. in the last couple of meetings. And so we're working hard to get that before you as well for consideration.
Great, thank you. So with that, we're going to adjourn the town council meeting and convene our sanitary district 2 meeting. So we're going to call to order the Tuesday, February 2nd meeting of the Board of Directors of Sanitary District 2. I will waive the salute to the flag. Rebecca, can we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Casissa?
Here.
Board Member Lee?
Here.
Board Member Ravazio?
Here.
Board Vice President Kuhnhart?
Here.
Board President Beckman?
Here, thank you. Open time for public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items that are not on our agenda. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes apiece to comment, and you can either raise your hand via Zoom or email public comment at tcmmail.org. Is there any public comment? And I'm not seeing any hands up. Rebecca, did we get any emails for SD2?
No, we did not receive any emailed comments.
Okay, then seeing no hands up, we will close public open time. There are no presentations, which brings us to our consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have previously been discussed and do not require further discussion. Any member of the public or the board can pull an item for comment or discussion. Would any members of the board like to pull an item from our consent calendar? Okay, would any members of the public like to pull an item from our consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion on the consent calendar. Yeah, Bob.
Move to approve items 4A and 4B.
Second.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, could we have a vote, please?
Board Member Casissa?
Yes.
Board Member Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Ravazio?
Yes.
Board Vice President Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Board President Beckman?
Yes, thank you. That brings us to item 5, public hearings. Our only public hearing, 5A, is first reading and possible introduction of ordinance number 46, which is, I believe, the Sanitary District 2 kind of corollary to the ordinance that we just discussed for the town council, authorizing the district manager to settle claims and lawsuits of up to $50,000 as permitted by state law. Mr. Cusimano.
Yeah, I thought they did such a great job on the last report. We're just happy to answer any questions. This really does mirror the other staff report. The district manager is RJ, and so RJ would have this. This would be delegated to him. The only caveat additional to this would be that there is language where on claims it would be in in working with the town manager. And so he would ultimately have the decision, but obviously we would collaborate on any claims with the sanitary district. And so that would be the only real change. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Any other questions from the board? If not, we'll open this up to public comment. Any member of the public who would like to comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom or email public comment at tcmmail.org. Rebecca, did we happen to get any emails on this?
Nothing beyond what I read during the town council meeting that also pertained to this item.
Perfect. That was a great comment, and I thought that staff's response was excellent. I'm not seeing any hands up, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion or a possible motion on ordinance 46. Fred.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve ordinance number 46.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Great, thank you.
Just to clarify, it's first reading and introduction of the ordinance. It will be next agenda for approval if it's introduced tonight. Board Member Casissa?
Yes.
Board Member Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Ravazio?
Yes.
Board Vice President Kuhnhart?
Yes.
Board President Beckman?
Yes, thank you very much. There are no business items. Item 7 is district manager and board member reports. Is there a district manager report?
Just real quick, we're wrapping up our sewer system management plan and just received proposals for our sewer master plan. So those are 2 documents that are going to help us make decisions moving forward, and we'll be bringing those hopefully forward for possible authorization in the coming month.
Great, thank you, RJ. Are there any board member reports? If not, any comments on our next agenda? And if not, then we are adjourned.